I dodge low and sweep the blade with my spear. The foe is strong, diverting his strikes takes all my might. Fighting during the day is wrong, I should hide and rest, but being prepared pays off and I need to train now in case I get caught off guard one day. My thoughts are sluggish and moving is difficult. Sometimes I need to stop and remind myself that I am fighting. Vampiric speed is all but impossible. Thankfully, I am not entirely defenseless. My strength and agility are still my own, though it takes everything I have to keep that specific enemy at bay. Torin lunges, feints and stabs again. I counter and dodge back at the same time, just the way Nami showed me. My lover is forced to abort his attack to deflect the strike aimed at his heart. The gesture is small and effortless. He lightly slaps the blow aside, then his assault resumes. He is grim and relentless, a veritable storm of steel that follows me with no respite. By comparison, my style is much more chaotic. I am often low to the ground except for lunges, and change direction constantly. I keep the patterns as unpredictable as possible, capitalizing on every opening and opportunity one can spot. We are relentless perfection and savagery opposed, but the advantage is his. Despite my speed, I only managed to strike his flank once and paid for it by a slash to the face. By comparison, my training gear is already covered in scratches and tears. We face each other with steel blades so any wound closes promptly, but the sting to my pride does not heal so easily. He struck my heart at least 5 times. Torin controls a sphere around him where his existence is tyranny, and he attacks with a relentless will that grinds all opposition. Despite my best efforts, my concentration wanes and I am soon entirely on the back foot. One of his slices catches me across the shoulder and sends me careening through the training room. Night falls. I feel alive. Energy courses through my veins as everything gets back into focus and my mind sharpens to a deadly point. Then something unusual happens. I have practiced diligently with the cards Aisha gave me. 2 times out of 3 now, I can predict the outcome, and whenever I do, I feel a pull towards a direction that does not exist, not exactly inward but close. I feel it now. With perfect clarity, I can tell exactly where Torin's blow will fall, even with my back to him. At the last moment, I twist on myself. His blade rakes against my chest protector as I stand and swing at the same time. My blind talons find purchase in the flesh of his throat. Yes, you are mine now. Something pointy presses into my chest. His sword. I stop. Torin's steel gray eyes capture me. They are filled with pride. Beautifully done, my star. Not so bad yourself, Torin. You were right, this was a good idea. Of course, I was, he replies, feigning outrage. Behind us, 2 mortal attendants wait with equipment in the manor's largest training room. One of them is a slightly older, burly man with a satisfied grin, while the other is younger and obviously witnessing vampires fight for the first time. If he opens his mouth anymore, I will be able to shove a whole egg in its cavernous depths. We are alone for now in that bare room of dark stone, though soon vampires and mortals alike will tread its vast expanse, using dummies and targets to hone their skills, while the most adventurous will make their way to the circle we now stand on. With nightfall comes something else. I feel, once again, a pull. There is something that I should be doing, but I am not quite sure why, only that it is important. Shall we continue? Hold on, dear, there is something. What is it? I am not sure. A hunch. Torin waits in silence as I close my eyes and focus. Alas, getting anything else is impossible. I am simply not good enough yet, and the meaning escapes me. All that I can perceive is a diffuse sense of forgetting something, or of having a destination in mind, though I do not know which. I do not know. Is it related to Bingle? Likely, yes. Then let us not stay here and find him instead. I frown in frustration. Did Neshoba not tell me that real-life work would serve me better than blindly following hunches? And here I am, already forgetting. After a quick passage through changing rooms designed to this effect, we leave the blades in the hands of the two attendants and depart the arena. The training room is situated underground and is well provisioned with all manner of weapons, including pistols. The dueling ground is covered in sands to absorb spilled blood, a necessary measure for us. We quickly make our way to the front desk where we find Sophia, Constantine's assistant. The unusual Rosenthal stands straight as a rod, with brown hair in a prim tail and her hand on a saber by her side. "What can I do for you? Are there any messages for either of us?" "No." "Expecting something in particular?" "We are helping a godling. Someone touched by fate. He may have tried to contact us." The woman considers our problem for a moment. "Could you describe him?" "Dark hair, dark eyes, shaven, wears black dash. And carries a cane." "Yes. He is down the road at the first checkpoint. We blocked his access for we did not know him. I was about to have him brought in for interrogation. Would you like to see him?" "Yes, have him brought up and wait in the lobby, I will be right back." I turn to leave while Torin finds a seat to wait. The night passed, we helped Bingle take the scepter. I would not be surprised if the vampire at the other end of the chessboard had played their turn. If it is the case, it ends tonight, and quite likely through a physical confrontation. Time to try Loth's armor. I move to my bedroom, scaring Solveig on the way and throwing the special wardrobe open. The battle dress awaits me in all its baleful glory. I undress until all that remains are my smallclothes and put it on. I fasten it piece by piece, feeling the protective garment fit snugly until I am clad in it as in a second skin. Once this is done, I take a second to stretch and luxuriate in the feeling of the silk-like fabric against my skin. Each scale slides in position with uncanny precision, leaving me completely free to move. I then grab throwing knives, my silver dagger and the spear, finishing with the silver pistol I took from Father Perry, the oldest piece in my collection. I tie my hair and grab my old mask from a container, the one I had worn at the masquerade, though I do not yet put it on. I am ready. A minute later, I reach the lobby once more and smile at the sight. The room is packed with vampires here to see the godling. The lobby's couches, normally mostly empty, are now filled with a variety of my kindred and their servants. Some pretend to read books while others confer, or plot, in low voices. An annoyed-looking older woman is knitting, her brow furrowed. In the middle of it, Bingle sits sheepishly by Torin's side. The adventurer has lost some of his flame. His clothes are in disarray and deep pockets have formed under his eyes. Even his back, normally ramrod straight, has a slight bend to it. Something bad happened. I sit by his side and skip the pleasantries. "Talk to me." "I was a fool," he exclaims bitterly. This is the first time I have seen him expressing negative emotions with such strength. "Elaborate?" He sighs. He gently massages his temples with shaky hands. "We were betrayed. Unknown assailants found our hiding place and kidnapped Miguel, Sarah's cousin, while we were away. They killed Sarvajna. Stabbed him to death. While I was checking for traps, Sarah found the ransom notice. She absconded with it and the scepter, only leaving me with a hastily scribbled note and vague apologies. I know from her words that the exchange will be made at nightfall, but she did not tell me where. The more I look, and the more I see the myth fraying at the edges. Stubble mars his pointy chin, his traits are drawn and his eyes bloodshot. The most fascinating element is that he is still himself, a godling. He only now represents another aspect of the adventurer, the jaded one, the one who drowns memories and lost friends with gin and carries a gun instead of a cane. We are at a junction. I am not obligated to do anything, I can feel it. The pull of fate disappeared at the very moment I sat at this table. I could just tell him to fight his own battles and drive the hero down a darker path, one of vengeance and knives in the night. Along this route, there would be more opportunities for me to use him to my own ends. I won't. I have enough darkness around as it is. Soon, this period of respite will be over and I will return to my scheming, ruling, and the wholesale slaughter of mortals who overstep themselves. Bingle is the vaguely annoying yet cute cub that offers distractions regardless of one's own plans. Yes, Bingle is my puppy, I realize. I should not kick the puppy away. Besides, we are playing a game, that other vampire and I. One they are winning. It is my turn to play and it would be a shame if I had gotten changed for nothing. I emerge from my thoughts to see that the atmosphere around us has changed. The spectators of the scene stare not at the daring man but at me and my armor. The spear by my side shines with the flickering red of the hearth. The scent of Wilhelm's flower arrangements clash with that of vampire and human sweat. They want to see what I will decide. Some look eager. They know that one does not dress as I do for a tea party. I turn to Solveig who had followed me down and ask her to inquire after Salim. We will need his pet mage, Sorrel, to track down the unruly artist. Do you have the message she left you? Yes, he replies, taking a folded sheet from his breast pocket, here. I pick it between two talons and unfold it. The writing is horrible, barely more than pinpricks. I also spot 2 wet marks, quite likely tears of regret that cannot end there unless shed on purpose. Sarah's tasteless antics will end up making our task easier. It will work. I turn to the Bingle and take his hand in mine. He shivers at their coldness, and only now does he notice how sharp my nails are. You know that I am different, don't you? You can feel it in your heart when our eyes meet, when you see me move. I do. That curse, it. His Adam apple bobs as he swallows his saliva with more nervousness than he had ever displayed. It changed you. Correct. It changed me. It also showed me a world that was previously hidden. I can find the woman for you, but then you will know and that will make me vulnerable. I can keep a secret. Good. What you see tonight, you will not write down, and you will not report either. You will keep it secret. Will you do that? Of course. I am grateful for your help, Miss Delaney. I would never betray your trust. I nod and fall silent. It doesn't take long for Salim and Sorrel to show up. I suspect that they were already on their way to this impromptu gathering. I negotiate a tracking spell in Akkad with a smiling Salim, and the serious mage immediately gets to work. Tracking spells are simple constructs for those with proper training. We have our compass in only a few minutes. I hope it is not too late, says Bingle. Normally it would be, but the enemy being a vampire, perhaps they have not had the time to reach the exchange point. Something tells me that the godling's strange effect on reality would at least grant him a chance, though I am not so certain. Arriving just a tad late would be a good plot twist. If we want to have a chance, we will need speed. Follow, I say, and go to the counter where Wilhelm is waiting. The blond man's dark eyes fasten on my guest with a predatory intent. Bingle feels it and shivers. Wilhelm. Would you have a mount for my guest? We do not lend nightmares, even the half-blood ones, to mortals. He is no mortal. Wilhelm turns his attention to me. His considerations are short. After a few seconds, he reluctantly nods. Very well. I do expect compensation. You will complete a task for me in return. Of little danger, and no more than a single night. Agreed. Go to the front of the manor, I will join you there. Join me. Behind us, Torin walks up. Wilhelm will want to keep an eye on his mount, my star. Would you care for my company? It will make the journey faster. Of course, dear, though I would prefer it if you left our foe to me. It is your hunt. Clan Natalie's offers assistance with your ride, House Nirari, comes a low, rumbling voice from behind. Lord Yarrick is here, dressed in custom-fitted hunting leathers. It looks good on him though I suspect there is enough material involved to build a tent. It has been too long and the occasion could not be better. Will you allow it? I will, I add without hesitation. If there were a price, he would have mentioned it, and I will not look a gift lord in the mouth. We walk out. The pull of fate is silent now. It has been replaced by another, a sort of momentum that carries me forward and gives more weight to my steps. I am not sure what is happening, all I know is that it will be special. I turn to Bingle. He needs to understand. What you will experience now is a rare privilege, I inform him. To ride by our side, vampires who have lived through hell and slaughtered legions. I know this to be true. Bingle nods, his expression serious. The weight of his failure has been momentarily lifted from his shoulders by his burning curiosity. He is still an adventurer at heart, and nothing speaks of adventure quite like a hidden order of whatever he thinks we are. The unexpected excitement is making him positively giddy. Our little procession stops at the edge of the inner court and Yerrick steps forward. I claim the lead as eldest. In my mind, the possibility of denying him dies before it can truly be born. Yerrick is the eldest and strongest. He shall lead the ride to a satisfactory conclusion. It is as should be. Above, the watcher's tendrils uncoil lazily. It likes it when I experience things, I can tell. The vague feeling of satisfaction is both alien and clear beyond any doubt. The Natalie's lord steps forward and whistles. The ground rumbles with the weight of ungodly hooves. The largest horse I have ever seen comes forth from the darkness. Massive. There are no other words for it. I thought Métis large and she is, but she is also built for speed and power both. This newcomer is a charger, bred to carry armored knights to and through enemy lines. Its dark saddle is so high that I would never be able to drag myself up to it without jumping. The beast waits placidly as Yerrick hoists his gigantic frame onto it. The size of the pair plays with my sense of perspective, until the dense forest leading to the bay comes into focus and I am forced to accept reality. They really are that big. If famine, war or pestilence came to herald the coming of the apocalypse, they would look like that. Excitement fills my heart. Crower is next and Torin takes Jarek's right, then Wilhelm comes and takes his left, pulling behind him a shorter nightmare. I help Bingle up and climb on a visibly excited Métis by his side. We are right behind the Natalie's lord on either side of him. Yerrick turns briefly to ascertain that we are all ready. To our right, the balconies are filled with mortals and vampires who observe us in silence. The scene is deathly quiet as they wait for us to start. Yerrick lifts a gauntlet-covered hand to the heavens then forward. His unnatural destrier walks at a leisurely pace. We follow. We are slow, so deceptively slow, but there is, again, this momentum carrying us forward with the energy of an avalanche. We cross the bend at the top of the plateau and descend down the road along the cliff at a trot. The guards have opened all the gates and cleared the way. We trot down, our coming announced by a rumble like an emergent quake. We reach flat ground. Yerrick lifts the compass in his armored hand. The construct looks no bigger than a marble between his giant fingers. The needle pointing southeast shines a strange purple hue. We accelerate. Everything up to now was but a preparation for the real event. Wind pushes strands of hair from my face as trees and road drift past, the group now moving at a furious gallop. We ride. We move into a forested path and soon, there is nothing but us and the way forward. The deafening sound of nightmares trampling the ground expands and reverberates until we are no longer few, but an endless horde charging through an infinite forest to a battlefield at the end of time. Under the sky and its eldritch denizen, we ride, and we cannot be stopped. Nothing exists but the smooth movements of Métis, our destination in front and the other predators by my side, united in purpose. I do not know how long it takes for us to come in view of the clearing, probably less than a quarter hour. It felt both like much more and much less. Yerrick holds a fist and we slow down. It is over. For a moment there, I was part of something great. With only 4 of us, I felt like Attila's adoptive daughter riding down Aetius' legions. What could we achieve with 20, 100? It will likely never happen. Vampires are too divided, too solitary. But perhaps, one day. I shake my head to regain my senses. This is a thought for another time. Climbing down from Métis takes only a moment, one the others use to leave on their own business. I am left with a dazed Bingle, my own death pony in the mystical equivalent of a hangover. The adventurer is the first to recover and I realize that he is quite committed to his cause. I shake my head and follow his skulking form, realizing that if evil befalls the soprano, the opera season will be ruined. I need to focus on what is important. The clearing around us overlooks the Dorchester Flats, with Boston far to our left. It used to be lived in but now lies abandoned and desolate. A single large structure stands in the middle, surrounded by overgrown vegetation on all sides. Upon closer inspection, the building is less a house and more a hall of some sorts with a glass cupola at its top. There are no lights and besides footsteps in the tall grass, no signs that this place has seen human presence in years. The contrast between the decrepit shell and the bustling city in the background is mesmerizing. Bingle does not care for this at all. While the experience of the ride distracted me, it made him more focused. He crosses the unkempt lawn in angry strides up to the door. I catch up to him before he can rush in. He turns to me, his face showing will and just a hint of bloodlust. Did I change the story, somehow? I will cover you in case something goes wrong, I tell him. He nods in silence. As an afterthought, I pick up my silver pistol and present it to him, handle first. He carries another cane tonight and I fear that this one might not suffice. Take it. You may be heavily outnumbered. I expected him to resist and I am surprised when he picks the weapon with a grip that shows training. My debt towards you only grows, he notes with a frown, before sneaking in without a sound. Time to see this story to its conclusion. I look up and easily jump to the second floor, then to the dilapidated roof. I make my way to the cupola and realize with pleasure that one of the glass panels has been broken. I lean in and look below. The remnants of a library occupies the massive open space beneath, carrying the scent of mold and a familiar spice. The walls are covered with empty bookshelves, now only hosting a handful of rotten tomes. A smattering of candles brings light to the desolate place, though I doubt mortals can see more than a few feet away. In the center, 3 people occupy a space left clear by the removal of work desks. I recognize the soprano of course, currently trussed up like a turkey, but also her cousin Miguel who appears to be suspiciously devoid of bindings. He is talking to a man in an expensive jacket that has seen better days. They are speaking in Spanish, and though I do not understand the content, they are clearly disagreeing with each other. I now understand why Bingle would mention betrayal. Those 2 are conspirators, not enemies. I turn my attention to the new man. He holds in his hands the tiger scepter. The artifact is the only thing of beauty in this den of treachery and neglect. Curiously, I feel revulsion at the thought of taking it from him. Intriguing. I extend a tendril of essence down and to him, tasting his own. He is far and the exercise strains my control. The result is a vague sense of dampened aggression. A vassal. It appears that the decisive round of our little game will be played by our main assets. I will bet on the godling over whoever this one serves any night of the week. After all. Click. Drop the staff, raise your hands in the air and step aside from the woman, slowly. My agent came prepared. The unknown vassal looks hesitantly to Miguel, then to the scepter in his hands. I have not had to shoot anyone in 2 years, sir, but do not think for a second that I would hesitate. His voice is cold and commanding. Desperation brought out the pragmatism in my companion. He would make a good vassal himself. No, Ariane, better not go there. I have enough trouble with mysterious and seemingly unstoppable entities as it is. No need to look for trouble. I always wondered how you knew Miss Diaz had the stone, the adventurer says. His eyes are curiously on the ground by his side as he keeps his gun on the vassal with a lazy aim. I watch with rapt attention as Bingle lays his trap. It will be good, I am sure of it. Miguel takes a hidden stiletto from his sleeve and creeps forward while Sarah moans impotently in her gag. Or how a warrior like Sarvajna could be caught off guard. Now I know. All the evidence. It happens fast. Miguel jumps and a glint of light reflects in the collapsed glass panel beneath me. I realize where the adventurer has been staring. He used the missing glass pane as a mirror. Bingle rounds on Miguel. He holds the pistol in a hammer grip and slams it into the traitor's hand. The other holds his cane below the pommel and presses a hidden button. A sharp blade snaps out of the implement's end before seamlessly getting buried in the traitor's tender abdomen. Points to you, Miguel. Ah, he could not resist, could he? I smile, and since my time has come, I put on my mask and drop down through the shattered canopy, onto an empty bookshelf. I land in a crouch without disturbing its delicate balance, and not even the half-rotten wood groans under my light touch. The vassal was prepared and rushes forward. Only when Miguel's blood dots the floor with crimson droplets does he realize his predicament. His hesitation costs him dearly. Bingle turns around and calmly aims. He pulls the trigger. A form moves through the room from a nearby hallway and interposes itself as the shot goes off. I recognize her now. She was at the party with two courtiers claiming to seek asylum. I remember little from her except that she is a Roland. Her face is strict and average with thick black hair, giving her the appearance of a governess, perhaps. She wears a black set of leather armor with plates around the heart and a metal choker. The bullet bites deep into her shoulder, and I delight in the look of pain and surprise when she realizes that I only ever pack silver. Her two courtiers are close behind and spread on either side of her. Their armor is similar and they hold dueling swords which they aim at Bingle. The one on the left has the appearance of a veteran soldier and knows how to use his weapon, while the one on the right is more bookish and clearly isn't enjoying himself. Let it go, child, the woman says with a hint of wariness, you should know when you are outclassed. I believe this is my cue. I slowly clap while releasing my aura. It washes over the trio like a wave, forcing them to take a step back as I drop down. I slowly walk up to the small gathering, my smile hidden behind the mask. This is just so deliciously dramatic. I could not have put it better myself. You. Yes. Me. You should have expected it, facing against a godling. While we talk, Bingle doesn't waste time standing around doing nothing. He unbinds a protesting Sarah who pushes him away with tears in her eyes. He lets her go and grabs the scepter at his feet. You have no right to oppose me. I am merely reclaiming what is rightfully ours. We are protected by our status as seekers, and attacking us is a violation of the neutrality covenant. Ah, yes, that specific law, the one that is aimed at protecting newcomers from retribution. Tell me, do you know the obligations that come with such status? I ask innocently. The woman's expression turns hesitant. She thought she could lawyer me. Hilarious. I learned the accords through and through because my survival depended on it. In order to benefit from immunity, you must forfeit all previous allegiances and arrangements, including current operations. Yes. That includes retrieving a scepter from the hands of a godling. Your status will be revoked as soon as Constantine learns of your machinations. Then I am sorry, but you leave me no choice. You must be silenced until we can depart. I regret that I cannot give you a fair fight, she says, and draws. I feel the same way. After all, there are only 3 of you, I reply mockingly even as her vassal leaves. She charges in with her 2 companions in support. I sweep at the approaching figure only for the left courtier to dash forward after the retreating forms of my allies. I smirk. Using one of Nami's tricks, I step back and strike the approaching master at the same time. I channel the Natalie's essence and the strength of the blow catches her by surprise. She is pushed back. I reverse my grip and stab to my left without looking. The courtier falls, a bleeding wound where his heart used to be. 1 down, 2 to go. By the eye, the woman says before moving again, this time more cautiously, and we fight in earnest. I have to admit, her confidence is well founded. I am faster and stronger, but her technique is exquisite and my lack of experience fighting duels on open ground shows. She deflects my strikes with economical movements, waiting for an opening then counter-attacks mercilessly. The courtier by her side almost never attacks, but his presence hovering by her side continues to pose a danger. Their style is the most defensive I have ever faced, and I am starting to think there is some truth to them surviving the fall of their coven. I finally manage to overwhelm her after a flurry of blows that leave the air ringing with the sound of metal on metal. As she stumbles back, I throw 2 daggers with strength. She falls to the side, dodging them. As expected. The satisfied grin on her face fades as soon as she hears the gurgling sound of her companion's shred throat. I wasn't aiming at you. No. This isn't over. You are but a child. The man falls incapacitated, the grievous wound too much for him. Only the master is still capable of putting up a fight. Since it worked the first time, I launch another series of furious attacks, culminating in a sweep that knocks her blade from her fingers. Disappointing. I close in for the kill. An immediate sense of danger and urgency makes me falter and I barely react to her next move. She extends her hand. An instant later, an oversized estoc manifests in it and punches clean through my mask, leaving a deep furrow in my cheek. I fall back and resist the urge to touch the wound. Keeping hidden claws are we? Let's see how well she uses them. Now that her trap is sprung, she adapts her style to using her sole weapon. Her reach is longer and striking the blade feels like hitting the side of a mountain. I keep moving around her looking for openings, but her defense is flawless and I want to avoid being hurt. Worse, my armor is now useless before this blade. Even the heart protector would only deflect a glancing blow. So hard to crack. So annoying. I could escape her easily, but this is not what I want. I want her to be broken and at my mercy. The small wounds I manage to land do not impede her, and it would take only one lucky hit to take me down. We dance for a while and then I get an opportunity. I block an overhead sweep and with one last ominous crack, the steel shaft breaks in 2 pieces. She roars in triumph. I let her blade slide along my shoulder plate as I crouch then push on, closing the distance. I stab at her with the half spear I now hold. She blocks it before I can bury its cruel edge into her chest. At the same time, I grab her other hand. This is now a contest of strength and I will crush her. She claws pointlessly at the armor's heavily enchanted arm brace while my own talons dig deep into her flesh until they shatter her wrist. She screams and drops her sole blade, then braces and tries to kick me in the face. Cute. Lambert did it better. I grab her foot and lift it higher, then sweep the other from under her. She falls. I fall on her. Rip her apart. She manages to cover her neck while I straddle her. I slash her arms, painting great lines of blood across the floor. Mine now. I surrender. Please. Surrender. I will eat you. My star. A voice I was not expecting wakes me from my bloodlust. The familiar aura flares at my back, towards the entrance. Who does he think he is? She's my prey, I'm not sharing. What do you want? I growl, and stop savaging my captive. The vanquished one under me stops moving as well. She shows her throat. Good. This is your first fight since you joined our society, the intruder says. And? The decision you take now will affect the relationship with your peers for years to come. It is customary to accept surrenders when offered unless the conflict is too great. It is also customary to spare our kin whenever feasible. One day, you may be glad that someone extends this courtesy to you. Talk, talk, talk. You talk too much. I win. I feast. This is the way of things. This is the darker path. I ask that you reconsider, my star, at least until the rage of battle abates. And why would I do that? I growl. Because. Torin starts, then seems to reconsider. His mouth twists into an evil smile as he steps forward, exuding confidence. Because you are being a brat and I will discipline you if you don't. Discipline me? I'd like to see you try. Then come, he answers with a smile, then opens his arms in welcome. He dares. I'll show him who is the queen. I bow before N01. I jump at him, spearhead held tight in my fist. Torin smiles. He manifests his sole weapon. It is a two-handed sword of ridiculous size, the most intricate and beautiful work I have ever seen bar none. It is even more majestic than Suarez' broadsword. Breathtaking. He swipes, so fast that I can barely follow. The spearhead soars into the air. Oh! A hand at the back of my head punches me into the ground. I yelp in pain, then in surprise when two talons grab my neck. I try to squirm out but the pressure only increases. I stop fighting. Torin lifts me by the neck like a kitten until we face each other. With his other hand, he unfastens my mask which falls to the floor. The cold air washes over my face, stinging the wound on my cheek. Better? He asks with a sly voice. Not, exactly, I answer. I lick my lips. This is strange. I hate restraints with a passion, and yet Torin's hand on my neck does not fill me with fury and horror. I trust him implicitly, therefore I am not trapped. I am, however, dominated. The same instincts that pushed me to kill a moment ago now ask that I present my throat so that I do not die, and since it's Torin, and he is my partner, the sensation is not entirely unpleasant. He did, after all, just crush me. That makes him powerful on top of everything else. Ariane. I will consent to taking them prisoner. Your arguments have weight. We both chuckle, and he releases me. I drop down and lean slightly against his chest, breathing in the scent of him. He is solid under my fingers. His presence is grounding and even relaxing. We stay there for a moment while behind us, the woman helps her second courtier up. The first one she will have to carry. A destroyed heart will not heal in a single night, unless one has access to extremely potent blood. The woman's vassal returns and helps them, and soon, we are ready to depart. We leave the building in a single group. Outside, I find Yarrick on top of his monstrosity of a nightmare patiently waiting for us. He lifts a brow when we exit the building with 3 vampires in tow, though he does not comment on it. In laconic fashion, he informs us that Wilhelm escorted your godling and that noisy girl back to the city. The return trip is tamer than its predecessor, and while we ride in silence, I find myself thinking. More specifically, I think of him. Torin is by my side with his steely gray glare and impeccable poise. His ruddy face makes him look mature and weathered, the kind of man who has seen it all and remains unimpressed. He is a bit terrifying in a warlord kind of way, and he has the body and sword to back it up. Then, he turns to me and his entire demeanor changes. He goes from strict to roguish, and unbending to solid in an instant. His traits grow softer. I want him. I want him enough that I no longer fear intimacy. I want to kiss him and feel him and all those other things I know of. Living in a brothel jaded me towards lovemaking, or so I thought. Overexposure made it a messy, fleshy affair that I had little interest in, something that others did. Now though, I realize that sex is what you make of it, and I really, really want to make something great. I want him. I do. Say Torin, do you have any plan for the rest of the evening? I ask in what I hope is an unaffected voice. No, he replies with half-lidded eyes. I'm not subtle, am I? Would you care to join me in my room? There is something I would like to show you. Torin takes a very careful expression. I hope I was not too forward, and that he doesn't think any less of me. Of course, Ariane. You can show me whatever you want. And I thought I was too direct. I frown, but in the end, decide not to take offense. Nobody will take this night from me, not even myself. The door closes behind me. This is it. I am nervous. Torin walks up and hugs me from behind. I am not tactile, not since I was turned, yet this firm embrace soothes me. Torin is solid and dependable, and he has shown time and time again that he was there for me, even when I had lost myself. We have known each other for all of 2 weeks, I remember. Somehow it feels longer than that. My lover remains silent. He must have an idea what goes through my mind right now. He knows that I am scared. What he may not know is that I am also eager. It happened during our very short fight, when he showed me the steel under that composure of his. It was not the violence itself but the control and power behind it that made me want him. I turn in his embrace and reach up to kiss him. He is hungrier than before and a bit demanding. My nervousness disappears before his passion and I close my eyes to enjoy the moment. His hands caress my shoulders and my back, and for a while, we just enjoy each other's presence. Rather quickly, I feel something hard push against my belly. Torin takes a half step away. He knows what I felt. His face is unapologetic, waiting for my decision. Torin. Be sure what you want, Ariane, because I am done holding myself back. In answer, I place my hand on the flat expanse of his stomach and trail down until I reach the tip of his erect member. Torin groans and grabs me as I yelp in delight. There is much I want to see, and he is eager to show. For the rest of the night, I know only him. I submerge in piping hot water and luxuriate in the amazing feeling of the warm water surrounding my body. Last night was so great. On one hand, I am horrified that it took me so long to experience lovemaking. On the other hand, it probably had to be Torin. That man is talented. Dangerously so. A knock on my bedroom door forces me to lift my head off the bathwater. Yes. Guests, milady. Your friends Naminata and Sister Jimena. Those busybodies, I grumble, then louder, let them in, I will join them momentarily. I dry myself in a hurry and pick up a light pink dress which I put on. I leave my hair down and come out into the main room. Look at that slovenly girl, Jimena dear. One night of sin and she's already given up on propriety, a sly voice remarks. That's rich coming from you, Nami. How is Yarrick, by the way? Hanging around, I'm sure. We heard that Torin spent the night. We are delighted for you, sister, Jimena says. How do you know already? I ask with horror. It takes a lot of effort to keep such things secret in this place. The staff also loves gossip, and as a newcomer yourself, you are a prime target. You must also take recent events into consideration. You mean the trial? The trial, the hearing, your lineage. There are also rumors of an arrangement with Constantine to take over a new region, as the entire state of Illinois has been taken off the list of available lands. I did not know that. Your duel with Torin yesterday morning impressed a few people as well. There are few who can offer a challenge to a warrior like him. And you're so young as well, my little lemon pie. Nami explains. And now you went and nabbed one of this den's most eligible bachelors. I admit that he exceeds all my expectations, I cannot help but remark. The other two smile at each other knowingly. Oh, it is not just that. You don't know why he is here, do you? Nami asks smugly. He mentioned his technical expertise was needed. He was quite vague. Naturally so. He did not want the knowledge of who he really is to affect you. Many would chase him just for what he can do. Whatever do you mean? I ask with suspicion. Naminata smiles knowingly and nods to herself. He is one of the world's few soul smiths, my sweet. What? He can help masters bring soul weapons into being. That is why he is here. I know what a soul smith is. Why are you telling me this only now? He requested that we do not share this knowledge and we agreed. On one hand, I understand him. I too, would prefer if someone was attracted to who I am instead of what strategic value I have. On the other, I frown. Have you two and my lover been plotting together all this time? Of course, dear, Nami declares as if it was obvious. From the very beginning, Himena adds, he came to us for advice on how to best approach our favorite thorny rose. Hey! It is for your own good, my little strawberry, Nami retorts, how else could we get you out of your shell? You needed a very special blend of silk and steel to let yourself go and he was only too happy to provide it. We are delighted that it worked just as planned. I hold my head between my hands. Am I that easy to read? I complain, dejected. You are not. In terms of emotions, however, you are surprisingly consistent, sister, Himena says with a gentle voice. 'Tis a good thing to be reliable in love and business, unpredictable in schemes and wars, Nami adds. This sounds like good wisdom, especially coming from her. Don't look at me like that, treacle cake, I am predictable in some ways. You always go for the hunkiest beefcake. That too, she answers without a hint of embarrassment. I shake my head. This is a surprise, and though I understand Torin's choice, we must still have a talk. So Torin is here to create soul weapons. What about the other two lords who arrived with him? What are their plans? Nami and Himena glance at each other. Himena shrugs and Nami starts. We are not sure. The most likely event is an arrangement for both Hastings and Natalie's clans to take over a domain, though this is mere speculation. Lady Sephair holds a lot of sway in the United Kingdom. She would have to sacrifice it all to come here herself and none of her protégés qualify either. Indeed, Himena continues, there could be other reasons such as a trade agreement or simply Constantine's expertise. He is possibly the most prominent blood mage in existence, after all. I bet he isn't. In any case, we will know soon enough. All three of them came to an agreement 2 days ago, an official declaration is sure to follow. Speaking of time, I interject, you have stayed here for a long time, Himena. Is your position with the knights assured? It is. I am afforded more flexibility than the squad therefore, I can stay here until my next task comes up. Hopefully not too soon. I will stay as well, honey, Nami continues with a devious smile, you always bring me the best and most interesting things. Are you referring to the Murghole Mana hounds? Absolutely. The Book of Lives can be accessed via several physical tomes, one of which is in New Orleans under Kuaku's care. I already shared that hunt, including its last glorious moment. You're famous. A dreadful foreboding fills my heart. We are talking about my incredible stunt, right? The part where I threw a lit powder charge down the beast's gullet? She just smiles. We imbue the recollection with a smidgen of essence. Your face just after the creature projectile vomited on your back was so priceless. Nami. It was. And now the whole of Clan Econ is grateful for your contribution. I received several commendations for having saved your life back in New Orleans. Some call me the Devourer Wrangler. Forget I asked. I reply, appalled. Himena smiles knowingly and asks in turn. Speaking of embarrassment, how is Urchin doing? Remember that you can always cast him out if he fails your expectations. He is doing adequately. I sent him to get a new wardrobe and I have taught him better posture, manner and, most importantly, proper ACAD. My hope is to have him promoted from street thug to fancy highwayman by the end of the year. He does not know the tongue. You do not have to teach him yourself, you know. Constantine has several books available for self-studies. That would help if he knew how to read. You must be joking. Alas, no. Why are you even surprised? You are correct, of course. I wonder who changed him and what pushed them to do so. There are rumors that Vanheim him or herself is to blame for these random occurrences. You don't say. Urchin would be a first-generation vampire. Like me? Hard to say. The Vanheim progenitor is barely more than a legend at this stage. I see. At this moment, Solveig stands up to answer a knock on the door. She walks back to give me an envelope. It contains a message from Wilhelm requesting my presence, quite possibly to pay back the favor he did for me yesterday. I dislike having debts, and so I take my leave of the others and go see what the steward wants from me. The moon is exceptional tonight. It hangs there in all its gibbous glory, beautiful and luminous but otherwise useless. The contrast with the Watcher is fascinating. The moon changes and moves across the sky, but as far as I know, it remains at the same distance and is boringly inanimate. The Watcher exists at a level where distance and size lose their meanings. Under its eldritch influence, lines become curves and curves, points. It is also sapient, after a fashion, and alien beyond anything that exists on this plane. Right now, the strange celestial body is quiescent, but not bored. Never bored. Hesitant footsteps tread the loam at my back. I recline on a park bench and breathe in the sense of late summer. The grass under my feet is brittle and some of the growth around the small clearing is already starting to wilt despite the gardener's efforts. The heavy smell of vegetation is only offset by that of the sea, more pungent. A faint breeze brings me the scent of pines and human sweat. The woman stops at the edge of the clearing and her breath hitches in her chest. The park is deserted at this hour, so we do not risk being disturbed. Yet that same emptiness fills her with apprehension. I am intrigued by the source of light she is using though. It shines an unnatural pale blue, probably some sorcery. The newcomer's aura shimmers and buckles wildly, signs that she is a barely trained mage and a strong one at that. Come closer, I say. For one moment, I think she will try to run. In the end, she chooses to walk to my side, but not too close. I turn to inspect her. She is young, in her early 20s with a candid air that life has not robbed her of yet. She wears a dark dress with a cloak that has seen better days and holds in her hand a crystalline sphere from which escapes the strange radiance. The item is magical, a weak artifact. It reminds me of fireflies or luminescent flora with its organic glow, shining over her traits. I find myself thinking of Constantine. They have in common to be more striking than beautiful, and her brown eyes express frustration as a tendril of essence quests towards me. Rude. I cannot feel you at all, she remarks in a soft voice. In order to cut that part of our meeting short, I calmly release my aura though I keep it subdued. The woman shivers when she tastes it. You are not a mage. But where are my manners, sorry. My name is Vera Wild. I thought I was to meet a man named Wilhelm. Wilhelm of the Ehrenwald is busy and asked me to assist you tonight in his stead. You may call me Ariane. Nice to meet you, Ariane. So, if I may ask, what are you? No offense. Curious, are we? A vampire. It strikes a bell. She mutters and takes a small tome bound in leather from one of her pockets. It looks well used, and she turns its pages with familiarity. Hold on, she says, I think Gran wrote something about your kind. Ah yes. Here. She reads slowly and carefully under the pale light of her orb, like someone a bit unused to the exercise. I can hear her mutter the words. Vampires. If you meet one of the denizens of the night who call themselves vampires, do as Instro instructed. First, use your most potent Potent fire spell. Her eyes widen in surprise. She mutters. I wait. I still wait. Firebolt. A pathetic gout of flame emerges from the half-ruined wand she just pulled from her handbag. I call the barest thread of the herald's essence and slap the spell away. It sputters and dies at my feet as silence once more fills the clearing. The pathetic ring of blackened herb captures her attention and, apparently, her wit. She opens and closes her mouth like a beached fish. Why don't you finish reading that text of yours? I suggest as I stand and move closer. The skittish dolt hesitates once more, then curiosity triumphs over common sense. A tragically common occurrence for young mages. That way if they lie you can scare the pretenders away, and if they tell the truth. She stops and suddenly appears dismayed. I hear a few swear words. Then hopefully you angered them enough to die with dignity. Vera looks like the victim of a prank and holds her notebook with barely contained anger. Her tiny fingers grip it as if she wanted to tear it apart. Oh Gran, she moans comically. Only after that does she realize her predicament. Ear, please don't kill me. I was tricked. Laughable. I wish I could at least give her a good scare. Unfortunately, I gave Wilhelm my word and my hands are thus tied. I am to assist the hapless thing for the night even if I do not accept her as a supplicant. Does that book of yours mention our propensity for mercy? I don't know, I haven't finished it. I'm not the fastest reader, you see. Indeed. So you're not going to kill me, she asks with a quivering voice. I sigh. No Vera, I will not kill you. Now, why don't you be a good girl and tell me why you would call upon us? Good girl. You're not much older than I am, she protests. Ah, a true neophyte. You don't know the first thing about vampires, do you? We do not age. You mean you can live for a very long time? I meant exactly what I said. But then. Yes, I answer with a mysterious smile, I am considerably older than I look. She gulps and I find the situation amusing. I am indeed considerably older than I look, just not inhumanly so. No need to tell her though. Let me bask in the glory of my mysterious and intimidating persona. I notice that she's a bit gullible. The way Gran wrote it, you are more dangerous than a werewolf, I cannot help but give her a grin, the toothy kind. She recoils in horror. I know I should not waste my time bullying the meek but she's just too amusing. Nami was right, gloating is our guilty pleasure. We consider werewolves as delicacies, I announce truthfully. Wow. But I don't want Opa to get hurt, that was not our agreement. Enough child, if I were here to kill I would have no need of you. Wilhelm mentioned an inheritance. What is this about? Right. I'd better tell you the story from the beginning. It's about my Opa, Mr. Schmidt. Mom's dad. She didn't marry the right person. She married my da and they stayed together until he died. He was Irish. Absolutely scandalous. Seeing my lack of reaction, Vera continues with more confidence. She went against the entire family's wishes and she was cast out for it. Only Opa took care of us behind their back. It changed recently though. He found out about what I could do. Also that my Gran, that's my dad's mom, she had been teaching me which things. He got mad. Real mad. He told me bad things like I was Satan's whore and got my powers from, sinning with demons. I don't do that, I haven't even seen a demon ever. I haven't even done anything more than kissing. Kissing huh? You shameless harlot. Anyway, he said that he was going to leave all his money with somebody called Gabriel who would punish me for my wicked ways. Have you heard of him? Oh, Gabriel you pitiless monster. I know thee well. I assume you are referring to the Order of Gabriel, a group dedicated to the extermination of any and all supernatural beings. Ah, Probably. That's bad, right? It does sound inconvenient. What do you want, exactly? Vera takes a deep breath, then her lips shiver while her eyes turn liquid. I just want my Opa back, she says. Fat tears roll down her pretty cheeks. She's making me thirsty with her amusing weakness. She just smells too much like prey. Alright, Ari, calm down, this is not the time. I can make him love you. Not like that. I want him to believe me when I say it's not my fault, that I didn't do anything bad with any demon or anyone really. I am not trying to deceive the hearts of men or some such nonsense, I'm just trying to learn how not to set the curtains on fire every time I'm upset. Is it so hard to understand? She pouts. I think I could convince him if we can have an adult conversation, I reply. Where is he right now? At the factory. He owns a printing press, the biggest one in the city. Will he not be home at this late hour? Nah. He always stays late. Not to work, mind you, he's just avoiding my grandmother. That will be convenient. Vera takes my silence for doubt. No, really, she's an old harpy. She turns the milk sour by standing next to it. I see. Now, show me to the printing press you mentioned. Vera leads me to the park's exit and then through half-deserted streets. The difference between us is flagrant. We look the same age, but while I walk as if I owned the street, she scurries around like a mouse, casting fearful glances all around. Her bent back, nervous hands and rapid head gestures scream weakness and, please mug me, to everyone around. I can see at least 4 groups of men stare at us like a pack of wolves. They do not act on it, however, and we leave a residential district behind us without me getting free snacks. Slowly, the modest houses with thatched roofs give way to small businesses and the occasional warehouse, all closed now. The gas lamps cast long shadows on the pavement as we walk by. We do not tarry, and it is not long before our destination comes in view. Vera was starting to forget to be scared and asking questions about what werewolves taste like, so it is a relief when our journey ends at the gates of Schmidt's Reliable Printing. I am surprised to see that not only is the place still open, there are people hard at work. They come and go, carrying bundles of leaflets and other supplies. Schmidt Reliable Printing is clearly doing well. The facilities may be old, yet they are well maintained as well as recently painted. I count 2 buildings. One is a very large warehouse with 2 doors wide enough to allow a carriage through. The other is a narrower 2-story edifice of red bricks. The clang of machinery coming from it is almost deafening, and it is surrounded on all sides by crates and barrels containing the watcher knows what. Following Vera's indications, I drag her towards it under the curious gaze of the workers. Once more, disguise is decisive in facilitating my access. A well-dressed woman who walks with confidence is an unusual sight in such places, enough to garner suspicion. The key is a haughty demeanor that marks me as a rich wife or daughter, possibly of a client. While my presence without a chaperone at this late hour is improper, addressing me is even more so for those beneath my station. It would bring little to stop us and could cost them dearly, therefore nobody dares to overstep their bounds, and so we get in unmolested. A male vampire would have to take a different approach. Urchin could not get in the normal way, because he just breathes duplicity. The shady man could not walk 3 blocks without a police patrol asking him about his intentions. I will have to find a proper use for him. Without stopping, I weave my way through the long lines of the presses while staying mostly out of sight. I could easily charm everyone barring us, but I keep Sinead's words close to my heart. Power is a crutch. To depend on it too much is to invite disaster, while to hone one's skills is the way to greatness. Besides, I have pride. I will not let an inattentive mortal get the drop on me, even while I am dragging a skittish bundle of nerves behind me. We can't be here like this. What if they tell Opa? Said Bundle hisses with panic. He will know we're here soon enough. Now, shut up. We climb a set of stairs to a much quieter second floor. A corridor leads us past closed doors leading to offices and archives, up to the biggest office. A heavy-set man with salt and pepper hair sits by the heavy oaken door, reading a book. He is tall and strong with the broken nose of prizefighters and the damaged knuckles that go with it. A worker outfit in gray and brown covers the body of a warrior gone slightly too fat. He has a bit of a belly, but also corded muscles covered with scars. He has not spotted us yet. That's Charlie, Vera whispers, he is Opa's strongman. He will definitely recognize me. Oh my god, what are we going to do? This is as far as I can go on bluff alone, at least not without preparation. I keep moving forward without stopping. When we are close enough, the man lifts his eyes and frowns. I can see the onset of cataracts in them. He probably doesn't see very well. Our eyes meet and I instinctively send a tendril of essence, charming him. Instead of resorting to brute force, I fan the flames of interest in his book and smother his curiosity towards us. His task is inherently boring while the book apparently isn't. He dismisses us as belonging here and soon returns his full attention to it. We pass him by and I take a peek out of curiosity. I cannot help but smile. The book cover is protected by an additional layer of paper bearing the image of a pugilist. The content is quite different. I read only a few sentences and realize that Charlie is fully absorbed in a tragic romance involving a woman and a man far beneath her social standing. His eyes widen as she laments their cruel fate. You do you, Charlie. Without knocking, I drag a stupefied Vera through the door and find myself in a large office. The room is clean and smells faintly of cigars. The walls are covered in overflowing bookshelves containing rare tomes as well as ledgers. Two comfortable leather seats face a massive lacquered desk behind which an old man is writing by candlelight. His traits are emaciated, and sad jowls drop on either side of his face as if he had lost a lot of weight recently. His skin is yellow and dry, and his eyes are bloodshot. White chops hang sadly by his side and the bald pate on his head is covered in liver spots. He puts his plume down and massages his eyes with a gnarly hand before looking at the intruders. He frowns when he spots us, then his expression turns horrified when he lays his eyes on his granddaughter. His shriveled face, already pallid, turns cadaverous. Vera recoils as if physically hurt. He stands up slowly and painfully though his thin frame quakes and twin spots of red blossom on his cheeks. His gaze is fixed on my companion and conveys not just anger but also longing. Vera. You and who are you? Another devil worshipper, he asks with a fragile voice. I have learnt much in a short time, and I have a good idea on how to proceed now. I am not a witch, no. I am something else. What do you mean? He asks with suspicion, just as he slowly reaches for one of his drawers. You talked to the Gabrielite. Did they not explain who ruled the night? It takes him a second to understand the implication. When he does, he frantically opens said drawer and looks around. It takes him a few moments to find what he was looking for and when he does, he jumps backwards as he realizes that I am now sitting in front of him, lazily inspecting a talon. He did not see me move. Stay away. Stay back, you devil, he whimpers. His face twists in pain and he reaches for his flank. Opa. Vera asks, with tears in her eyes. She is shared between the desire to help him and the fear of his wrath. Schmidt brandishes a cross and waves it around. We fail to scream and evaporate. I tug a bit on a finger and blink when it feels good. It appears that I am not entirely recovered. Finally, the old man's breath calms down and he swallows nervously. Why are you here? He asks. Please, Mr. Schmidt. You know very well why I am here. Are you the one who set her on the path to damnation? Nonsense. Magic is an inborn trait. Wickedness has nothing to do with it. But the order said. The order lies when it suits their purpose. Your granddaughter is not lost. She was just born with an unusual disposition. But the Bible says I should not suffer a witch to live. Also that he who is without sin should cast the first stone. Yes. It amuses me that I can quote the book if I am vague enough. But she has lain with. No, I have not. Vera pleads with powerful emotion. Opa, please, you know me. You have to believe me, I am still untouched. I would never do such a thing. Please, it's still me. The old man is now equally distressed. His own eyes shine with unshed tears, but soon, he steels himself and turns back to me. I do not know what you thought you could achieve, but it will not occur. You must both leave, before I have Charlie cast you out. Vera, I love you still, my little cat. I will not report you to the order, yet I fear it is too late for you. Depart the city. Please. I think not, I reply, gathering his attention. I am only getting started. To make my point, let us see what Charlie thinks about all of this. Even now, the cross aura pushes me back and grates against my essence. The warning it gives is no weaker than before. If anything, its power has grown like mine. The silent threat still carries the promise of oblivion and with it, a subtle taste of ash. Charlie, however, is unprepared. I slowly lean forward and grab a small bell from the desk. A simple shake and the light chime summons heavy footsteps. The door opens and the burly bodyguard looms in, his eyes widening in surprise before growing dull under the full strength of my charm. I showed the carrot in the person of Vera. Now comes the stick. I am not sure Sinead would approve of that last sentence. Oh well. Charlie. Join us, I order with a pleasant voice. My captive blinks owlishly and comes to sit in the empty chair by my side. I stand up and walk behind him before placing both hands on his shoulders. Schmidt watches me with apprehension. His knob-led hands clutch the cross like a drowning man to a buoy. You are dying, I announce without preamble. No. Vera screams. She rushes to the old man and hugs him with the strength of despair, making him wince a bit. He looks brittle next to her. Fading. She could squish him if she held him too tight. Eyes still fixed on me and Charlie, the old grandfather reflexively leans into the embrace of the one he trusts. They form a nice contrast and I commit this image to memory to paint it later. You are dying, I continue, and you want your inheritance to be put to good use. You were approached by a man who said the order needed you and it took little convincing for you to appreciate the need to defend mankind. You were already witness to Vera's strange abilities. Am I correct so far? Why, yes. He said that the fight against the forces of darkness was raging. Correct. We fight a war that cannot end. They are without number and we are without limits, and so generations after generations of fighters fall to this conflict. There is something you should be wondering, however. Something obvious. His mind is keen, still, and he immediately understands what I am getting at. Why do we not rise against you? Correct. Why does the order maintain secrecy? Why does humanity not unite in a great war to purge us from this world? Can you guess? Silence. Your kind is not as pure and disinterested as you think. There are millions of magic wielders and many of them are born to mundane families. We vampires are few but we have influence over a great many things, and you would be surprised at the number of rulers tempted by the eternal life we offer. An open conflict would be apocalyptic and there is no guarantee the order would end up on top. And so, we continue our secret war, age after age. I have their full attention now. There are unspoken rules, of course. One of them is that mortals who do not know of this conflict are mostly left alone. We do not lay cities to waste, slaughtering people in the alleys. If you join one side, however. I grip Charlie's shoulder harder. He moans softly as my talons pierce his skin and draw blood. I relax before I tear into the muscle, though the damage is done. Both Vera and Schmidt stare mesmerized at the expanding red stains on the man's shirt. The bodyguard is as glassy-eyed and unresponsive as before. You forfeit your immunity, I continue. You think you are doing humanity a favor by leaving the fruits of your labor in the hands of its defenders? You are not. You merely lay the burden of combat on the shoulders of those you leave behind, like our brave Charlie here. I lift a talon and place it directly under the man's right eye. The needle's sharp end digs into his skin. I drag it down, leaving behind a bloody furrow. I cast a light glance at Vera as well. She does not see it, but her grandfather does. They will be the ones who pay for your decision. I am sure that your friend in the order will speak of sacrifice and safety in number. You already have an idea of how safe you are. As for the price to pay, ask yourself this: if a man dies without a choice because of your decision, is he your sacrifice or your victim? You already know the answer. Schmidt's throat bobs as he swallows. His voice is calm now. He has gone beyond fear, to the cold place where one stares the reaper in the face. Is there a way for this meeting not to end in blood? Yes. What are your terms? Desist. Enjoy your last weeks with your loving granddaughter, make peace with yourselves and others and leave your company to one you deem a worthy successor, I care not. This is not your war, old man, and it is not up to you to decide who will fight it. Do we have an understanding? Yes. I believe we do. I give you my word that I will not support the order in any way. Will you need guarantees? Your word is enough. You know what will happen if you change your mind. I see. Yes. One last question. If this magic doesn't come from deals with the devil, then where does it come from? I have a theory, actually. Loth had scholarly books that spoke of noetic fields and soul and some such. I believe the answer to be significantly more prosaic. Nobody knows for sure, though I suspect that some ancestors had children with fantastic creatures. Like gnomes and korrigans. Yes, I answer, thinking about a very specific bright-haired and absolutely scandalous individual. That remains a hypothesis that I do not have a way to verify, I continue. A scientific-minded monster, Schmidt remarks ruefully, that was all, thank you for your answer. Then I'm off. Remember, we will be watching. I already gave you my word, the old man growls, idly caressing his granddaughter's hair. They have things well in hand, and my work is done. Vera gives me one last grateful glance as I exit and release my hold on Charlie. Funny how she doesn't realize that I implied I would kill her. Oh well. Now the situation should be comfortably heading where we want it. I did not perceive any lie in the old man's words, and if he changes his mind and goes back on his word as mortals are wont to do, well, I shall visit again. I take one last look at the note in my hand. It contains an invitation to visit the 26th Dorser Alley to meet an informant regarding mentors of the mystical arts. I had been looking forward to learning magic, so the letter was welcome. The problem now is quite obvious. There is no 26th Dorser Alley. The street is a dead end with a brick wall between a tailor shop and a writing supply store. Only the lack of ambushers convinces me that this was not a trap. Or is it? 2 footsteps and 2 heartbeats come from my back. I turn around and stare at the newcomers as they make their way down the deserted path. They do not exude danger at all. If anything, the taller one is apprehensive while the shorter one, still a head above me, struts around as if he owned the town. The taller man is clearly the muscle here. He has the keen eyes and clean make of the mercenary rather than the common arm breaker. He checks corners and roofs with experience, but no matter what, his attention invariably returns to me. When it does, he frowns and displays signs of incredulity. Intriguing. The second man is queer. There is something about him I cannot quite put my finger on it. He has a graying beard and the air of a perfect gentleman, with an impeccably ironed dark blue vest and slack that suit him perfectly. His appearance is unfamiliar. And yet. The man stops a few paces away from me and extends his hands disarmingly. His smile is smug beyond reason. In fact, his behavior screams amused superiority and condescending confidence in a way that I have only ever seen. Oh no. It cannot be. I extend a trembling claw at the man and hiss in anger. You. Arg. Tut, poppet. Manners. You are embarrassing me in front of my friend. Sinead. You dare. Do you know what this town is? Vampire Central? Blood's Ton? It's the last place you should be. I swear to the Watcher, if you get caught stupidly I will drink you dry before I let the others have you. Oh so sweet, my precious poppet, but fret not, I took all necessary precautions to mask any hint of my presence. And we're leaving soon anyway. I frown with suspicion. We are. Yes, on a glorious quest to save one of my kin. He is being transported as we speak across the ocean deep. We will have to engage into a tiny bit of piracy to rescue him. You will have to kill a vampire, I'm afraid. I am not sure this is a good idea. Not while I finally gain some legitimacy. He is a distasteful man who enjoys torturing his prey before drinking. Your point. Ah, your heart truly is cold. He is also a Lancaster known for his tendency to go after his foe's human entourage out of spite. On one hand, the risks. On the other hand, the return of the dread pirate Ariane the Bloodthirsty, Queen of the Waves. Let me just make a few arrangements and summon some interesting help. We do not want to leave witnesses, right? Sinead's smile would make any mortal tremble. Captain Smollett's tale. It had been a bad year. The night carried an unseasonably cold wind that chilled Captain Smollett to his very bones. It had been a bad year and it could still get much worse. Frowning, the man knocked on the wood of the railing for good luck and kept an eye on the endless expanse of waves before him. A passing gust tried in vain to alter his unflappable countenance. Captain Smollett of the Blue Jay may have fallen on hard times, that was true, but he would never forfeit discipline nor manners. No sir. And not honor either. As for tradition. Some things had to be sacrificed. It all started with the Compromise Tariff of 1833. Congress had passed a bill to reduce taxes on import to a more manageable level. Some businesses had flourished, mostly in the South. Some others, which heavily depended on protectionism to be viable, had collapsed. Such was the case for the Blue Jay's main employer. To make matters worse, one of his ship's two masts had split right in the middle during a particularly vicious storm, forcing her into drydock so that she could be repaired. Now his Blue Jay, his beautiful schooner, was at risk of being lost through bankruptcy. It was all because of bad luck. Desperation had led him to consider employment that he would have scoffed at a few months before. Now, even the notoriously underpaid sailors threatened to leave his ship. There had been no choice but to accept Simon Need's proposal. His letter of marque had been genuine, as far the captain could tell, but the very act of privateering was distasteful and the guests Need had brought on board. There were 10 mercenaries trained to kill. Smollett knew that kind. They did not look at you so much as through you, and it only meant one thing, that when lead would start to fly, they would lodge an inch of steel in your gut like some shove a loaf in the oven. Clinical. Uncaring. They patrolled around the ship in pairs like bloodhounds and never mixed with the rest of the crew. Need himself was entirely different. The man cheated at cards, the captain was certain. As sure as the sun rose in the east. And yet his men did not care because he did not cheat to win but to make things more interesting, more alive. Every night now, the men off watch would gather around the table on the lower deck and throw their fates and fortunes on the table, at the mercy of painted paper and bone cubes. Spades and hearts would mix with numbers in an unholy dance under the greedy eyes of breathless spectators. They would scream and moan and laugh until drunk with emotion. With feverish fingers and wild abandon, they would count coins and tokens and throw them with panache and far too little thought. Princes and first sons of merchant houses could not match their flair and passion. Glittering casinos could not match the fire burning in their veins nor the madness in their eyes, while enthroned in the midst of those improvised bacchanals, Need himself would govern like a sultan of old. He would needle here and tease there. With one of his words, fortunes would change hands, then again in the other direction, but no matter how much they lost, they could never stop. Every night the players were back and every night they would throw themselves at the game as if their life depended on it. And then there was the woman. A woman. On his ship. It was a non-negotiable clause of the contract bonding Smollett to the service of the enigmatic gentleman. The strange lady would be on board and that was it. She was a quiet one, and that worried him greatly. She would only come out at night and walk the bridge under the fascinated eye of the sailors at work. She would wear a proper dress that left nothing uncovered and yet hinted at a great figure. The others looked at her with more adoration than lust. She was unattainable, as ethereal and distant as the North Star to rustic seamen and used to the fairer sex, for the only gentler contact they had were their relatives and the shore harlots, ugly things who would spread their hairy legs for a quarter a pass. She might as well have belonged to another species. Perhaps she did. The others would only steal glances, but he did not have to. She was beautiful, of course, with hair like ripe wheat and eyes the color of the sky at summer's height. Her skin was fair and her manners graceful, and yet there was something odd, something that grated him. It was her demeanor. His men saw her and thought she was an aristo, a blue blood or some such. Smollett knew it was a lie. He had attended wealthy parties where the richest scions of the land had gathered to intrigue. He had seen them, and they had not been her match. They had lacked the predatory grace, the unnerving movements and the perfect poise. She was something else. The woman would walk on the bridge with an incongruous tricorn sat on her pretty head, singing a queer song. It stuck to his mind like shells to a keel. She sang it with a beautiful voice, and slightly off-key. The whole thing was eerie and captivating. Here 12 poor men remained on a sinking frigate. So many lives were lost to a dreadful pirate. Neither tide nor the sky gave the crew no quarter. Off the coast of Cuba they would meet their maker. Oh, off the coast of Cuba they would meet their maker. As she sang, she would brush the railing and look out to the sea, where Smollett knew there was nothing, and follow some phantasm with a knowing smile. She was doing this right now. As he watched, her hand stopped on something and flicked it away with such speed that for a moment, he believed he had hallucinated the gesture. Then she resumed her stroll, humming under her breath. Smollett stepped forward as soon as she was away. On that piece of familiar railing used to be a stuck nail. The captain had damaged the sleeve of his favorite jacket on the protruding piece of metal, months before. It was gone now, as well as a long sliver of wood. Someone had dug a ghastly furrow through the salt-encrusted oak. Smollett closed his eyes and prayed. The ship had been moored for a day. Smollett had barely slept. In a dream, he had spied Need overseeing a game of poker below decks. In front of the players, there had been no coins, nothing but tiny pearls emitting an incredible radiance. They were souls, he knew with certainty. The maddened sailors were betting their souls on the game, spitting and screaming and frantic as they played. Then Need looked up and his eyes were no longer brown but a pale amber, and lo, on his head grew a great pair of horns. He had woken up in a jolt, clammy with cold sweat. Breathless. No amount of prayer nor alcohol had allowed him to catch a wink after that. Now the blue jay bobbed up and down at the whim of the waves, hidden behind a low island. Need was no longer overseeing his games. He was waiting for passing boats, and each time one would, he checked his compass and shook his head. Smollett had caught a glimpse of the strange contraption, and one thing was sure, it did not point north. Sorcery. Smollett was sure of it now, there was vile wizardry at work. He was harboring devil worshippers. He would have liked to rally his crew and throw the disgusting heathens overboard. Alas, most of them were already under the spell of need. Curse him. Curse that contract and curse the day he agreed to it. Rather sell the Blue Jay than work with the servants of the enemy. Too late now, far too late. Meade had his evil claws deep into the minds of the sailors. Smollett would have to finish his task and hope for salvation. Then, there was the woman. She was strolling alongside the railing, singing slightly off-key in that haunting voice of hers. The captain begged and prayed for someone to rescue. The brave crew and himself, for the reefs claimed their due. Neither angels nor saints would answer his prayer. Off the coast of Cuba they would meet their maker. Oh, off the coast of Cuba they would meet their maker. Their eyes met and Smollett realized she knew about his belief. Her gaze pierced his mind and revealed the doubt and fear under, torching away the haze of alcohol and the numbness of habit to revive in his heart the freshest of terrors. She knew and did not care. Once more, her merciless stare aimed outward, to the ocean and beyond. She saw something. You feel it, don't you? The world is holding its breath and those who pay attention have already noticed, she said in a lovely voice. Her smile was sharp and dismissive. It angered him for some reason. The fury dug deep into his chest and lit waiting embers. They had no right to come here and steal his ship, his people, for their nefarious purposes. There is nothing there, nothing at all, he yelled. The captain froze. He wanted to say no. He knew he had to refuse, but his mouth was dry as the Sahara. It would not open to say the words and a sick curiosity needled him forward. He felt himself waver at the edge of that question like a skiff caught in a whirlpool. His sanity was sliding, slowly, but with a fateful certainty that gripped his heart and whispered sweet promises in his unwilling ears. He had to know. To find out the truth. It was the most natural thing. How could the truth be worse than whatever uncertainty and doubts were torturing his mind right now? Smollett did not resist when the woman's fingers gripped his shoulder. He shivered, surprised by her strength. Look, she purred. And a veil was lifted. The sea was not empty, though he wished it were. His mouth opened though he could produce no sound. Terror. Mind-stealing, debilitating terror froze his very being. The sea was alive. It was teeming with unnatural life. The edge of a fin, the hint of a webbed hand, the end of a scaly tails. Baleful yellow eyes reflecting the pallid light of the moon above. Sinuous movements of slimy skin and unnatural limbs left and right. Smollett wanted to scream but the Boschian vista had robbed him of his voice. Only a keening sound emerged from his choking throat, and tears of the starkest fear trailed down his cheeks. Welcome to your new world, the siren's voice by his side murmured. The devil had his quarry in sight. Smollett brushed an idle hand on his filthy jacket. The reek of liquor was strong even in the open air as the Blue Jay sliced through the waves. His crew went through the motions like automatons. They licked their lips and smiled and exchanged gossip about the games, the previous ones and the others to come. They cared little about their surroundings, or they would have surrendered to madness as he had. Last night, his helmsman had met a cruel fate, thrown overboard and lost. He had been a resilient and pious man. Smollett found that he envied the departed. Meade was at the prow, no longer holding a compass but a mirror instead. The strange artifact hurt the captain's tender head when he stared too long. He knew what it did. Under the Blue Jay, a perfect reflection of his beloved ship had appeared. Its light was supernaturally bright and yet its halo did not extend past the shimmering mirage. The sea around them was darker than a demon's soul, so that Smollett could barely see the murk bubbling with the passage of the monstrous pack. It was as if all lights had been captured by some evil witchery. They were occulted by a veil of darkness. The men aboard their prey were oblivious to their imminent demise. No cry of alarm had sounded yet even though they approached it at full speed. The woman stood straight from leaning against the railing. She was dressed in an armor of obsidian beauty, bearing an alien sigil. Like this, she looked like a savage goddess from a heathen nation, whose warriors raided shores and left nothing behind but burned husks and beheaded monks on stained altars. A desperate laugh rose from his chest. She sang still. Then a voice offered him with a frightful whisper the salvation he sought at this fateful hour. For a price, the voice said to the tempted skipper. Off the coast of Cuba you won't meet your maker. Oh, off the coast of Cuba you won't meet your maker. They rammed the other ship. A terrible groan of tortured wood exploded like thunder on a cloudless sky. All of the men on their victim's deck were sent flying into the air. Some fell in the ocean. Others fell poorly, smacking into hard surfaces with ghastly crunches. Need's men released their holds on ropes and lifted their muskets at the door leading below decks while the witch jumped up and let out a terrible whistle. Then she blurred. Something so fast it was practically invisible racked through the stunned crew, leaving behind only mangled corpses and severed limbs tumbling. A mist of red spread over the deck as the incomprehensible carnage continued. Soon, the horrid forms of the fishmen he had glimpsed climbed up from the abyss and joined the fray. The shriek of the dying and the roar of the coming abomination filled the air in a hellish cacophony. Then, the door opened and men trailed out led by a pale warrior decked in full plate armor. It was at that moment Smollett knew he had gone mad. The creature screamed in a lilting tongue he had never heard and great fangs emerged from his ruby lips. The challenge was answered in full by a terrible deflagration as Need's entire team fired upon the newcomer. Men died left and right, and the form blurred as well. The otherworldly scene devolved into a nightmare that even the most unhinged prophet could not have imagined. The fight reached a paroxysm of bloodlust and savagery until with a victorious roar, the witch severed the warrior's hand. Her next strike skewered him through the chest and before Smollett could register this new development, she was on him, biting into his throat with delectation. Around her, the abyssal horrors dismembered the last of the desperate defenders and the battle, if you could call it such, turned into a feast. Smollett sobbed as he witnessed scenes of great gluttony. Entire cadavers would disappear down the monster's gullets in seconds and in the midst, the witch finished her business. The remains of her foe fell to dust until all that remained of him was a circle of black gore around her delicate lips, which she licked with gusto. Flawless execution, don't you think? Need joked by the captain's side, and the seamen laughed and laughed and laughed. 60 men sailed to sea, only one did come back. On a ship of red hull and with sails of pure black. With the devil's due paid he would drift forever. Off the coast of Cuba not to meet his maker. Oh, off the coast of Cuba not to meet his maker. A huddled form sat singing in the center of a derelict room. The sickly man wrote frantically on a stained piece of paper under the light of a dying candle. Bottles of liquor and empty vials of opium littered the ground. He sang with a broken voice and ignored the spittle accumulating at the corner of his unshaved mouth. Finally, the man leaned back and sighed. Tension left the nerve-racked silhouette. His shoulders, previously taut like bowstrings, finally relaxed. His face went slack as he closed his eyes. Peace, at last. All was recounted. His duty was done. He could finally let go. The man dried the paper with a pinch of sawdust, added the last page to a bundle which he carefully placed in an envelope. He inscribed an address and left next to it a small pile of money. Finally, he lifted a captain's cap from his desk and threw it unceremoniously on the ground. He grabbed the pistol underneath with an air of angelic felicity, placed the barrel in his mouth and pulled the trigger. In the next apartment, someone swore. Time passed. The door opened in silence. A tall man with amber eyes and hair like gold stepped in. He scrunched his nose with displeasure then walked to the desk, from whence he retrieved the sealed envelope. He opened it with obvious excitement and quickly read through the manuscript. Each new discovery was met with appreciative "oh" or disappointed "meh." After an indeterminate amount of time, the man grabbed the fragile testimony and approached his unwitting host's prostrate form. Not bad at all. Thank you, Mr. Smollett, the intruder whispered in a sing-song language. The papers were soon committed to the flame of the candle. The bundle burnt brightly for a moment and the guest waited patiently, unmoving even as the fire licked his delicate fingers. When the work was consumed, he brushed his intact hands until nothing remained but a small pile of crushed ash. After he was done, he left the door open and disappeared into the bowels of the city. I am glad that the candidate you are considering is a man. Quite tactful of you, dear, I tell Torin. Torin replies, apparently lost in thought. I tisk and roll into the bedsheet so that my butt is covered. Torin blinks owlishly. You were saying. Torin expertly dodges the pillow I throw at his head and chuckles as he sits on the bed. His tone switches from playful to half serious. Yes, I am considering a man, though I cannot claim credit in this instance. Dvor ranks are overwhelmingly composed of men. Perhaps 3/4 of us serve Mars and not Venus, though I feel the need to point out that it is not a question of competence, but of culture. You see, we come and recruit from traditional societies in which the roles of the sexes are clearly delineated. The ownership and defense of the land that qualifies us is usually under the purview of men, though there are exceptions. Adapting to Western European and now American society has been a challenging experience. Oh, I reply crestfallen, I knew I was being too forward. Nothing of the sort, Torin chuckles as he moves next to me and tucks an errant strand of hair behind my ear. If anything, inviting a man to one's chambers is a common occurrence back home. I was referring to you charging into danger then unloading musket after musket into the ranks of screaming invaders while clad in a custom-made armor that would intimidate a Tatar raider. That sort of thing. I see, I reply somewhat relieved, your women do not fight. How do they hunt then? I ask. Many demand offerings. The satisfaction of having one's prey brought to you by underlings can be a pleasure in itself. For others, the thrill comes from outmaneuvering rivals and foes. Social confrontations often end with the loser insensate on a couch. They will later wake up with a severe case of anemia. The spirit of the hunt is respected and the satisfaction it brings, genuine. I understand, I say with a nod, I still prefer my method, however. I can tell. I narrow my eyes at my lover who shrugs helplessly. Well, he is not wrong. I enjoy our conversation, my star, though I fear we must continue at the party. I cannot afford to be late. Yes, especially as one of the honored guests. A man entering the ballroom would think themselves transported to a fairy tale or a nightmare. Protestantism has seeped deeply into the cracks of American society and with it, a certain sobriety and disdain of ostentation. Successful people should have no need of splendor, for they ought to find happiness in God and hard work. Extravagance is discouraged. Vampires have no such qualms. The manor's right wing is packed with groups of men and women dressed in exquisite dresses as stylish as they are precious. Cotties in martial jackets mingle with Rolands in warm tones while on the side, a band of econ clad in garish colors joke and carouse to their heart's content. There is enough wealth on display to fund a small expedition. The crowd has been here long enough for an interesting phenomenon of social decantation to split it into 3 distinctive and immiscible layers. At the forefront, courtiers socialize with each other, their entourage and loyal mortal families, the susurrus of their conversation providing a pleasant background to a talented string quartet. In this environment, politeness is an absolute rule. Rivals greet each other with veiled threats and smiles that do not reach their eyes. They exchange barbs and clever repartees with casual grace in an endless contest of wit, yet if anyone feels angered, they do not show it. Even the auras are hermetic and subdued as those who cannot control themselves were left behind. A second layer consists of vassals, servants and masters in small clusters bound by interest. While the younglings joust, these men and women plot. A word or a few gestures exchanged behind a fan seal the deal on some obscure transactions, the nature of which I can only guess at. Beyond them, the third and last layer is also the thinnest, being host to a handful of lords and ladies, as well as their closest advisors. At these rarefied heights, the conversations turn to the mundane, or gossips. Indeed, deals worth the illustrious guest's time could only be conducted behind closed doors. Behind them, an elevated platform on which the musicians play takes the furthest part of the room from the entrance. After that, the illusion begins. Since the mirrors at the end of the ballroom only show half of the revelers, the reflection does not match reality and space seems to go on forever. It is as if the manor outstripped even the palaces of Rome or London, becoming a castle of mythic proportions. We first make our way layer by layer, coming across Cotties and Roland who salute me rather coldly, Econ who salutes me too warmly, and even new Lancasters who I assumed would salute me not at all. Their polite greetings surprise me until I remember that with more an outcast and their territory in shambles, they have a vested interest in starting anew. After what seems like forever, we end up next to Sepher and Yarrick. If I had been alone, etiquette would have demanded that I stayed with my peers. As Torrhen's companion, however, I am expected to remain by his side. I do not mind at this time, as I expect my peers would have subjected me to a proper interrogation. Masters already know what will be announced of course, yet none would waste an opportunity to extract a few useful tidbits from the mouth of one of the lovers of tonight's main actors. Lost to contemplation, I allow Torrhen to guide me through the crowd until a lull gives me the opportunity to assuage my curiosity. Are there any vampire musicians around? I whisper in Torrhen's ear. Despite the guest's delicate hearing, it is customary to act human. Besides, picking a voice among so many can be taxing. There are, but they do not perform in such functions. No self-respecting courtiers would agree to be just background entertainment. I see, I answer while I watch Yarrick and Suarez apparently agreeing to a spar. The mood among the lords and ladies is lighter than anywhere else. Naturally. At this age most enmities ended with one or both opponents dead. You will find that after a while, even bitter foes can become friends. Especially when few of either survived. It is, as they say, lonely at the top. Here, look at the partygoers. Do you see those clear lines between courtiers and masters, then master and lords? This celebration is a microcosm of our society, with the proportions respected. Observe how few of us are left who call no man their master. Many who volunteer to join our ranks swallow the bait of eternal life, but there are no guarantees. The average spawn has as much chance of seeing his 50th birthday as if they had stayed human. It takes quite a bit of skill and just a little luck to be counted amongst the long-lived. Worthy allies, too. Quite right. Ah, it appears that the time has come. And indeed, the musicians pack up and leave the floor to Constantine himself. The progenitor, flanked by Melitone who saved me from the torturer, climbs the 2 steps to the platform and faces the crowd with dignity. Torrhen gives me a last nod before joining Sepher and Yarrick at his side. Silence is quick to come. Ladies and gentlemen, my lords and ladies, thank you for joining in tonight. Our host begins calmly and in English. Tonight, I am pleased to announce that 3 new clans shall join our honored community. Please give a warm welcome to the representatives of Clan Natalie's, Hastings, and Dvor. We applaud politely. In formal occasions, vampires are announced by order of seniority, gender has no impact. I was surprised to learn that this cute slip of a girl is older than Torrhen. She looks and acts so human that I let my guard down. In the years to come, Constantine continues, Lord Yarrick will head southwest to join the Texians in Mexico. The Dvor territory will depend on the leanings of Lord Torrhen's candidate and its location will remain confidential for safety reasons. As for the Hastings, their domain shall cover the District of Columbia. I almost gasp in surprise and behind me, more than a few low whispers erupt across the room. Washington. Constantine is giving the Hastings free reign of the capital. The Congress? Is he insane? No wonder the negotiations took so long. He must have demanded quite a few guarantees. The Lancasters may control humans better than most, but Hastings act human. They can eat. They can even stand the light of the sun. To give them access to this place. I barely listen as Constantine speaks of the Accords, our great community yada yada. The Hastings are taking over the government of the nation, continuing centuries of mask traditions. Checks and balances mean nothing when one has a finger in every pie. This is a momentous development. The worst thing is that there is little I can do to change anything. I need to secure my own den. I need Illinois. I must negotiate with Constantine with this in mind. I should have asked for it after the trial together with the progenitor's blood. Oh well. Constantine promptly concludes his speech. Afterward, Yerrick, ever laconic, talks about a haven for his kind and of strengthening the bonds that bring us together. Safair's speech centers on development and independence while Torrens is based on the values and cultural roots we must develop. I noticed that all three stress independence and the creation of a society separate from the old one, even Torren who will eventually return to his homeland. It could be Constantine's influence, or it could be that they all see the need of preparing against Mask and Eneru's inevitable power grab, Yerrick and Sephair for their own interest and Torren for that of his spawn. At the end of the speeches, the three of them walk down and mix with everyone to answer their many questions. I have no interest in joining their territories, nor to be so close to so many people. I, therefore, decided to head outside through the French doors and on the promenade surrounding the manor's inner garden. The fountain gurgles happily and the humdrum of conversations is replaced by the sounds of the night. I breathe in relief, though my respite is short-lived. As soon as I exit, I detect a familiar aura to my right. Tired out by so many big words. The lords can be condescending. By the way, condescending means they look down on you. Melusine, I'm surprised that you are not in there kissing bottoms with that silver tongue of yours. Are you not tired of being homeless? I reply to the Lancaster by my side. Melusine wears a conservative emerald dress that covers her body but leaves the neck free. Her red hair is pulled up in an elaborate hairdo, and a single teardrop ruby sits at the edge of her cleavage. That's rich coming from someone who lives in a brothel. Above a brothel. Every time I opened the door and took a deep breath it reminded me of you. Strange appetites you have. Speaking of which, when will you take my blood? I grow tired of this sword of Damocles on my neck. I planned on taking it at the moment I called upon her for a task. However, I can tell that the idea of owing me such an intimate favor irritates her. If I were vindictive, I would leave her now, yet something stops me. Melusine was my first rival. I used to call her a trollop every day in my head just for the strength to keep going. It feels like ages ago. In a way, it was. I have changed much since then and so did she. The loss of her vassal has made her less petulant, sharper. I no longer feel like taking revenge and I do not wish to make one more enemy. Right now, if you wish. Melusine inhales and blinks. She clearly did not expect me to agree so readily. However, she does not let the opportunity go to waste. Over here, she says, and I follow her to an alcove in the promenade. She sits first with dignity and I join her promptly. At first, she will not meet my gaze, then all of a sudden she frowns and glares at me. Don't kill me. I won't, I reply, offended. I do know why she is like this though. It takes efforts to surrender oneself so completely and to do so to a rival is a terrifying prospect. Let's get this over with, she declares, and bares her neck to me, eyes closed. I lean against her. She has a pleasant scent and her hair tickles my nose. Her skin is very pale, and no pulse moves her blood. I lick once to numb the pain, making her sigh in the process, then bite down. She is powerful with a little bit of that color that I associate with mages. To my surprise, memories start to surge. Surrounded. I need to hold on just a bit longer so that the others can escape. The Lancaster vampires caught us off guard, but if the children can reach the main base, not all is lost. I just need to hold the shield. Just need to hold. 1 more minute. 10 more seconds. Just hold it together, Melusine, you can do it. You can D. Master is dead. She was found guilty of supporting the Jacobites against clan lines and got executed as a result. They put all her spawn in cages and made us watch. It hurt so much. Now we are being shipped to the new world. Only Lambert is truly by my side. The rest are either broken like Caitlin or just plain useless like that Françoise Sal. I planned to kill Arthur on our 3rd night together. Then we talked for a while, then we made love. He knows what I am because I naively revealed it to him. He said he did not care, and now I have a vassal. I think I like it. He makes me feel things I had long forgotten, and for the first time in what has been forever, I did not wait for dawn hating myself. The world has turned upside down. That devourer Twit proved herself cunning and merciful. She spared me so that I can take revenge on my kin. Nothing makes sense anymore, not since he died. I pull back. I did not take much strength, and still her memories almost overwhelmed me. Both Melusine and I shudder, and we move away from each other. We stay there for a while, me processing what I saw and her possibly recovering from the ordeal. After a while, I wordlessly offer her a tissue and she wipes the little dark blood there is. I look around awkwardly. The garden is now home to a few groups of guests seeking privacy. Now that the main event is done, the celebration has spilled over into the surroundings and no doubt into the bed chambers as well. What marks me the most is the absence of guards. They would be everywhere back in the dream, always visible to remind both employees and customers that security is enforced, with or despite them. Does it look secure? I comment idly. It is, Melusine replies without emotion, this is one of the most secured locales in the entire continent. How so? I ask with curiosity. Melusine narrows her eyes once more, so I just wait to see if she is inclined to answer. After a while, she shrugs, her green dress slightly shifting on her white shoulders. I do not need to explain how this place is secured at night. During the day, the different guest security forces will secure both the valley and the manor. There is only one, very narrow way up. Anyone trying to infiltrate our base would have to slip by 200 well-trained soldiers, 400 now if we count every clan's entourage. Those trying to force their way through would have to assault this choke point against well-equipped, well-trained and entrenched enemies. It is also common knowledge that Constantine has left many unpleasant surprises in the surrounding forests and the manor cliffs. Should someone succeed anyway, they would need to pass the vault doors leading to vampires' slumbering places. Constantine wakes up quite early, so they would have to contend through this as well. Finally, vampires living in the manor proper are to be evacuated to a secondary shelter at the first sign of trouble. Anyone still here at nightfall would be dead meat. That is not the manor's main defense, of course. Our first and most important tool is intelligence. There are always signs of a great force gathering, moving people, stored powder, or bought weapons. That is why the assault on the fortress 30 years ago took us off guard. It required a great deal of preparation and an insider's help. Still, it failed spectacularly. You know a lot, I exclaim with genuine surprise. Melusine gives me a dismissive glare. This is always the first thing you should check when moving to a new den. I was otherwise engaged, I retort with a scowl. Melusine closes her eyes and shivers, acknowledging my point. It appears that she too experienced the tender care of hostile hospitality. Fair enough. And now I will take my leave of you, devourer. I hope your peasant palate enjoyed the refined taste of me, for you shall never enjoy its match again. True, it had a unique blend of strawberry and entitlement, I fire back. Melusine hisses but it lacks bite. Our truce holds. There it is, master's gift. It was delivered earlier today by an uneasy Salim who held it at arm's length as if it were a snake waiting to bite. I can tell from the packaging that this is a book, which makes it the second precious tome I have received in a few days, which absolutely means that I am a cultural and sophisticated vampire and absolutely not the brute Melusine implies I am. Nope. I placed the heavy bundle on my desk next to its companion. Sinead gifted me with this, a sublimely designed, leather-bound affair dyed deep blue with its title printed boldly in golden letter, as a reward for our short escapade on the seas. I find some of his methods wasteful, but there is no denying the expertise with which he sealed the fate of so many in so short a time. Lycaean, a primer. Despite the laconic title, this really is a one-of-a-kind tome of untold value. Its monetary worth itself is likely more than the entire dream, not that I ever intend to sell it. If knowledge of the book's existence were to spread, it would cause no end of trouble for me. Sevilla wrote this specifically for me. It is a complete guide to their language including pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary and even idioms. I do not plan on visiting their land ever, especially if Sinead is the norm, and yet beyond the purely cultural value, there is also another one that relates directly to spellcasting. As Loth explained to me long ago, there are 3 elements to a spell: the symbols, the will and the fuel. In most cases, all 3 elements are required to bend reality to one's will, though I am sure that the most powerful casters out there can do without the symbol part. The caster's essence provides the energy needed for the working, visible as aura. Essence stems from the soul, and though its energies can temporarily be depleted, they always return, unless one is robbed of their own will. I have heard of external energy sources, and Loth even experimented with an electrum-based receptacle at some point, however they are extremely inefficient and one needs essence to start the process anyway. The will of the caster is the beginning and the end of any magical process. It guides the energies and transforms them to suit the purpose of their master. It is that will that alters the world and momentarily breaks the laws of physics, chemistry, and God. The more experienced the will, the more potent the spells cast and the more the mage can achieve before exhaustion inevitably takes hold. Unfortunately for us, our sad reality can only be pushed and bullied so far before she rolls back, smothering the offender beneath her ponderous yoke. To move her thick molasses, symbols are a vital component of the spellcaster's arsenal. It is also by far the most versatile. Spells themselves are mostly incomprehensible. We know fire. We also know through the work of Lavoisier and others of oxidation and a more scientific approach to it. Spellcasters still cannot quite tell how their magic transforms this fire from a natural phenomenon into an almost living entity that chases after its prey like a bloodhound. The causes and effects are more or less understood, but the why remains beyond a veil of strangeness that no experiment can pierce. As such, symbols can bridge the gap between that alien phenomenon and our primitive minds. They act as a translator between the will and the form, or a bridge perhaps. In any case, symbols are incredible, and many systems were developed over the years by the countless cabals, covens and cults gracing our history to assist casters in their projects. Another element of symbols is one's relationship to it. For a man who has spent his life amongst the arid dunes of the Sahara, Finnish runes of reindeers and aurora borealis would be of little use. His mind cannot link symbols and his own ideas, and so that alphabet would be a hindrance. No, one's code needs to match one's mindset to be of optimal use, therefore the choice of which system to use is determined by affinity. Of this system, the most basic element is the language. In this regard, my sire favors his mother's system and uses Akkad when he throws his terrible curses. I planned on doing the same since Akkad is our sacred tongue. Now, however, I have a whole new option. I am not a Lycaean by any means, and yet I feel a deep connection to Sinead, their prince. Deception, ruthlessness, and the lust for freedom are values that he defends and that I sympathize with. Lycaean is a secret language, and although its usage may spark some unfortunate bouts of curiosity, using it to cast spells is far from the smoking gun that the book would be. I am willing to take the risks, for secrecy and for one other reason. Lycaean is a magical tongue. I mean it quite literally. I whispered Shirar, their word for darkness, and I felt shadows creeping at the edges of the room. The whispered consonants slithered in the corners like smoky imps and drank the light greedily, leaving the room dimmer. If this is how life works in the land of the Lycaean, I almost wish I could travel to the Court of Blue and feast my eyes on the incredible things I could see there. A talented gardener could simply sing flowers to life, or a warrior could scream his enemies into bloody pieces. Incredible. I am giddy at the possibilities, especially now that I have more time to spend on personal projects. My smile falters when I return my attention to the unopened package. Nirari's gift. After a moment of hesitation, I tear off the paper and realize my mistake. I do not hold a book, but a book container. The metallic rectangle is engraved with runes of protection and containment. A circular lock was placed where a title would be, the key already engaged. The key itself is no standard work. It is a circle of silver and onyx without embellishments. Ominous, to say the least. I rotate the mechanism and hear a click. The lock opens and a powerful aura submerges me. Blood. Power. Death. The aura is intoxicating and heady. Treasure. Precious and poisoned. Then, the moment passes and the aura diminishes until it is merely a trace, something that stays in the background. From the unorthodox box, I retrieve a tome. The piece is unadorned and old beyond measure. The edge of the cover is slightly cracked and mysterious dark stains mar the otherwise yellow surface. I caress it. Smooth, like skin. Some sort of vellum. Unbidden, memories surface of the vision I had back at the vampire fortress an eternity ago, when I drew Nirari's essence and stabilized my existence. It was the first time I saw Semiramis and she was inscribing runes on human skin. Ah! I am now the proud owner of an entire manuscript written on the literal back of mortals. Tacky. At least it looks well preserved. I open the first page to see only spellbook written in Akkad by an elegant hand, and ignore the ominous feeling I have to leaf through its contents. The first part is tightly packed text while the rest is page after page of blood magic spells described in excruciating details. I am not familiar with the rune system he uses, but I can tell at a glance that they are complex. Once more I am reminded of the past, specifically the spell my sire cast against the army that opposed his return and the pale imitation I used against Lambert while drunk with power. This is an incredible gift, though I have little use for it right now. I can tell at a glance that the level of difficulty of the average spell is high. This is not a beginner's book, and it will take me a while to reach the level where I can use any of the spells contained within. I have so much to do. Every night, I practice with Aisha's card deck, with the only notable effect being that sometimes when I fight, I can tell what my sparring partner will do next. Every night, I also train and educate a grateful urchin. Mock battles and fights with lords and masters are also common and allow me to experience a variety of styles and techniques, something that I have a great need for. Finally, I spend time with my friends, with Torin, shopping, at the opera, etc. The distractions are many and I am happy to indulge after being in hiding for so long. I simply haven't had the time to invest into learning magic. The irony of an immortal out of time does not escape me. That is fine. I have much to do, including drinking Constantine's blood and securing a territory. After this is done, I will dedicate myself to magic. The mystical arts cannot be pursued lightly, after all. I spend half an hour studying Lycaean and writing observations in a brand new notebook when a knock at the door distracts me. Yes, Solveig. One of Lady Safair's maids is here, milady. Her mistress would like to invite you for tea. Tea. That is what she said. I wonder what she wants. We shall visit her momentarily. Solveig departs and I stand up. I am wearing one of my latest acquisitions, a comfortable yet elegant interior dress in light blue. It will suffice. I walk out and follow the maid to Sephair's suite, which happens to be in the opposite wing. We enter a richly decorated reception room even more grand than mine in tones of white and pink. Lady Sephair herself sits at a table with a pair of plates, a teapot and cutlery. Pastries are piled on a strange contraption consisting of several plates set against a metal frame. Ariane. I am so delighted that you could make it on such a short notice. Come in, come in. Sephair is also blonde with blue eyes, yet we could hardly be any more different. Her colors are paler, for starters, so that meeting her gaze is like staring at the surface of a frozen lake. She is also a dainty, delicate thing while I am more, well, solid. She looks like a precious slip of a girl that belongs at court or in some seaside house dying of pneumonia, and her cheerful and seemingly awkward personality makes her appear more human. It is, of course, a ploy, and yet I find myself unconsciously lowering my guard. I have to remind myself not to give in too easily. Thank you for your invitation, Lady Sephair, I reply as I sit. I notice that she placed a teacup in front of me. Would you care for a cup of my own special blend? It would make me so glad even if you only wet your lips. I would be delighted. Lovely. All those conferences are so boorish. Why can't we all discuss around a good cup, I ask. Here, shall I be mother? What? I beg your pardon. I ask, alarmed. Oh, silly me, you are not familiar with this idiom, I meant to ask you if I should serve the tea. Oh. Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind. I was really worried here for a second, and how does serving tea have anything to do with a mom? I am suffering from culture shock 10 meters away from my own bed chamber. What in the world? Unaware of my inner turmoil, Sephair serves us both with painting-worthy elegance, each gesture as graceful as the next. Soon, the cup in front of me is piping hot with amber liquid and exudes a delicate fragrance. I pick it up and pretend to sip it, letting a few droplets spread on my tongue. My sense of taste is completely muted for anything other than blood, yet my nose still manages to pick up hints of black tea, though slightly more gentle than what I am used to, rose, as well as something else I do not recognize. It is pretty nice, I suppose. It smells more fragrant than what I have ever experienced, at least. Sephair lets me appreciate her tea in silence while she helps herself to a slice of chocolate tart. Her tiny fork bites into the tender filling with surgical precision. Oh, look, it's raining. I suppose we were lucky to have a clear sky for so long. Not that I mind it when it gets a bit dreary. Best time to stay home with a good book. We do a bit of small talk mostly focused on the weather. I let her take her time as I assume that she will eventually get to the point, and I am soon proven correct. You must have guessed, by now, that I requested the pleasure of your company with an agenda. It has not escaped my notice that we are barely acquainted, and yet I find myself compelled to call upon you in my hour of need. You see, I left England with too limited an entourage for the task I shall soon endeavor to complete. I, therefore, request your assistance in taking over Washington, she announces calmly. I hesitate, then decide that I have little to use in explaining my reservation. I am honored by your trust, and yet I find myself already bound to another task. The safety of Lord Torrenham, she asks with a knowing look and a sly smile. If I could, I would be blushing now. It so happens that Torren will travel to Carolina to assist with the making of a soul weapon quite soon. During that time, he will be protected by the Cotties, an honored guest of Lord Suarez himself. I am sure I can borrow you for a couple of weeks. Oh, and I was led to understand that you have an ongoing deal with Constantine. Helping me would count towards completing the second task. I grit my teeth not to react to that. This would mean that as soon as the first task, Torren's protection, is completed, I can taste the blood of a progenitor. There is something I would like to ask, I say before I hesitate. Sepher lifts a delicate brow which I take as an invitation to go on. I would like your support when I claim a territory. Her delicate mouth forms a perfect O. Our land grab has whet your appetite, I see. I would be willing to support your claim under one condition. Name it. An alliance. I am an old hand at tasks that require a light touch, yet sometimes I find that a more direct approach can bear fruits faster. You want an attack dog? Goodness me, no, nothing so crass. What I want is a friend, and what I need is someone with the disposition to act decisively when the occasion calls for it, and to exercise restraint otherwise. You are that person. Sit me on my throne and I shall get you yours. Do we have a deal? She asks, and I feel myself weighted and judged by her penetrating gaze. Caution, Ariane, caution. I agree in principle, though I must remind you that a clan already placed me under their dominion once and you know how this ended. I will be a valuable partner. I will not be a servant. Quite so, my dear, quite so. I am sure we will accomplish great things together. I leave shortly after this with the uncomfortable feeling that I committed myself perhaps a bit too quickly. As they say, one door opens and 10 others close, and yet I feel like by standing without making allies, I would not go anywhere. Someone as savvy as Lady Sepher is a good place to start. On my way back to my room, I come across one of Lord Siren's retainers. He bows as I pass and whispers. Have a care not to be too hasty, milady, perhaps consider why she left in the first place. I look back only to see him walking without pause. So, it has begun. Politics. And this time I will not be able to charm my way to success. The next night, I find myself teaching Urchin the most basic form of elementary etiquette in the privacy of my study. No, it is not appropriate to compliment a lady on her bust. Or on her rear. If you must make a compliment, commend her for her poise, skills, presence. I swear this man could not be any slimier if he tried. But what if I, beg your pardon, want to get to know the lady intimately? Case in point. The only kind of lady willing to know you intimately would give you a discount if you would only shut up. Urchin winces, looking a bit crestfallen, which in his case gives him the appearance of a drowned rat and about as much charm. I remind myself of Sinead's lesson. He used to say that there must always be a carrot no matter how thorny and nailed covered the stick. Listen, Urchin, I appreciate how challenging your life has been up till now and how it might have not been conducive to learning social graces, I continue. Say what? The Watcher grant me patience. You're a low-born ruffian and it's not your fault. This revelation is welcomed by a confused stare. Huh, thanks I guess, my pupil answers. Which is not to say, I continue with superhuman control, that you must remain in this sorry state. If things go well, you will never age. You don't want to remain a shifty, pathetic dreg of humankind for the rest of your existence, do you? No. Good. I want to be rich. Ah, he screams as I slap him across the face with my dictionary. Reminder to self, wipe it later. I grab him by the collar and smash him against a bookshelf. Listen to me and listen well because I will not repeat myself. Your appearance, manners, and language are how you are judged by the people you come across, no matter who they are. Those reflect your nature and allow others to assess you before you exchange more than 3 sentences. It takes hours of interaction to reverse a first impression, and that is why we as vampires need to be at the very top. This is our ultimate weapon. Not our strength, speed or even our magic, but our ability to pass as rulers, to divide and conquer before the battle has even started. I have no need of a bottom-dwelling scum who can only snatch petty change out of pockets, do you hear me? You will learn and grow or you will fall. Urchin's eyes, at first filled with terror, switch to contemplation. Gears rusted by idleness rotate in his cavernous head until he licks his lips, seemingly come to a conclusion. Appearance. Right, like a gang boss is not a leader because he's the strongest but because he's got the swagger. Finally, we are getting somewhere. Correct. He talks, moves, acts and thinks like a leader, and so people follow him. Urchin looks far in the distance, then after a while, his attention focuses on me. I would be annoyed at his behavior, were it not for the belief that he is having a breakthrough. So, he asks with hesitation, do you think I can be a proper leader one day? Not a chance in hell. Yes, otherwise I wouldn't be using my precious time training you. I think he can become quite useful when it comes to trickery and other unsavory tasks. I doubt that he will ever be a part of polite society. You can take the urchin out of the street but not the street out of the urchin. My musings are interrupted by a knock on the study's door. After a prompt, Solveig comes in from the main room bearing a message and an air of disapproval. The mage Sorrel has come, milady. He says that there are 2 message requests for you. 2. I ask with some measure of surprise. Solveig only nods. I will see him shortly. Urchin, we must stop here for tonight. Please work on your ACAD and then meet me in the training room in 1 hour. Of course, mistress, he replies somewhat smoothly. Then he stands up at the same time as I do and bows to me, then to Solveig. Then I shall take my leave, mistress, Miss Solveig, I bid you good night. I smile in approval and Solveig curtsies reluctantly, an immense improvement from her previous reaction, which was a mixture of morbid fascination and fear normally reserved for baboons wearing coveralls. I follow him into the main room and sit to wait as Sorrel strides in. Good evening, Sorrel, please sit. What was that about 2 messages? I hope it is not merit with some dire news. I can taste the messenger mage's stress on his perspiration and heartbeat. I bear 2 messages for you, milady, the bearded man declares as his deep-set dark eyes search my face for some kind of reaction. Let's hear them. Right, I should probably start with the first request. Loath of Skorag wishes for a conversation. Aha, I understand now what makes the well-dressed man shiver. Communication spells such as these become more intensive the farther the person is. Sorrel will probably leave this room drained of aura, and nursing a spectacular headache. You may start when ready, I declare. The man nods, girding his metaphorical loins, no doubt. He takes the now familiar crystal sphere from a small bag by his side and starts casting with slow and deliberate care. It takes only a few seconds for the summoning to connect. Loth looks regal in a white ermine robe decorated with patterns of crimson and gold. A peculiar crown of bone sits on his noble brow and gives him an undeniable air of majesty. The impression is somewhat marred by the deep pockets under his reddish eyes and his vulnerable expression. In his hand, he holds a crystal snifter half filled with amber liquid. He smiles sadly when he sees me, but I can tell that it is a genuine one, filled with an intensity of raw emotion I had only seen once before, when I almost died back in the cave. He silently rotates his own orb and the image shifts, first showing walls of naked stone, not bricks mind you, actual smooth stone with very few decorations, then a massive bed next to which I find my gift. I made it for him back in Marquette and it took me close to 200 hours of effort to get it just right. The piece consists of 4 man-sized panels of canvas on wood linked together. On each of the 4 parts, I painted Agna, Loth's first love, at different periods of her life. The rendition had to be absolutely striking and I so thrashed perhaps 7 or 8 attempts that were not up to my exacting standards. On the first panel, young Agna stands defiant with her hands on her wide hips, telling the world that it can shove it. Her beautiful brown hair flows wild and free and her face is both strong and very feminine. This was the first time they met. The second Agna is the one he married, only slightly older with her hair held up in a complex hairdo. Blooming flowers cling to her braids and she stands shyly in a form-fitting white dress. Her smile is so bright and pure, I believe this is what the sun used to feel like before it became my bane. The third Agna is by far the most daring. She is the one who had given him a few children, the one I had seen naked under him. She stands with her bare back turned to us, her toned shoulder and large buttocks displayed without shame. Her hair now falls freely in a typical post-coital chaos, dotted with silver which in no way detracts her mature beauty. She is slightly turned to the viewer, only enough for us to see a mischievous smile and one ample breast tipped by a slightly darker nipple. With Nami's, those are the only two nudes I ever painted. The last Agna is her oldest form. In this one she is elderly and still her smile is here, warm and so very pure. She stands with difficulty on a background of flowers, grass and crags. I can almost smell the mountain air, but more importantly, I can see the immense sadness and love in her expression. She died a few weeks after that. Of the second and fourth Agna I had caught but glimpses and so they were the hardest to paint, but now that I see it again, I could not be prouder. The image abruptly turns back to Loth, who starts with a hoarse voice. This has to be the best gift I ever received in my entire damn life. Tear, Ari, ye. Two fat droplets trailed down from the edge of his eyes, he makes no effort to wipe them and when next speaks his voice breaks. I had forgotten what she looked like. I could not remember. Ye I cannot express cannot tell ye. I needed this so much. Thank ye, by tear. Something warm and unfamiliar fills my chest. I press a hand there, surprised that there is still something moving in those cold depths. Ari. Thanks just thanks. Know that I owe you more than I can ever repay. I am so very glad that you picked up painting ye know that. Ha. I haven't left my room in a day. Also had the best wank of my life. Loath. It's true. That ass. He reminisces with nostalgia, grabbing at the air with a beatific smile. Ahem. Right, sorry. I'll send you a letter when I can think again. Just wanted to express my gratitude in person. I understand my friend. Please take care of yourself and do not succumb to melancholy again, yes. Of course not. I needed a break anyway. Right, come and see me soon, I have so much to show you of the old country. I wave as the connection cuts and sit back in my comfortable chair. This was too short. I would have preferred to talk for hours but alas, Sorrel was already blanching. Torin will inevitably return to Europe. When he does and after I have secured a domain, perhaps I should visit. I let Sorrel recover for 10 minutes. He gulps down some alchemical concoction and I am only too glad to wait in silence as I reminisce about the good times we had together with the Dverger and Dalton. This period is lost but the memories are bright and I am glad that I got to experience them. Even if Dalton's death was horrible, I have no regrets. It truly is better to have loved and lost than never have loved at all, for with time, most memories become treasures. Not the torture thing though, that I would gladly forget. In short order, Sorrel is ready again and starts a new incantation. This time it is significantly easier and the face I see is quite a surprise. Jonathan, I greet him. The man who blew up my shed in Marquette and followed it with a vertiginous climb of the ranks of the White Cabal has changed remarkably in the short time I have known him. He still has a short black beard and penetrating dark gaze, but where they made him appear distant and a bit feral, now they grant him the appearance of a veteran commander. He seems poised and stable, as dependable as he is deadly. Ariane. A pleasure to see you again. Likewise. What do you want? I ask not to be curt but because Sorrel is already on the pale side. I wish to discuss an agreement that, I believe, will be to both our benefits. Can you meet me at our headquarters in New York? The sooner the better, as it is a time-sensitive request. I almost scoff at how ridiculous his request is. I do not run to you when called, Jonathan. I know this well, but as I mentioned this is time-sensitive and I am confident that I can make it worth your time. Do tell. My contact with the House of the Rosenthal assured me that you had control over your house, if I remember the term correctly. Yes. Your point. As of last week I am the White Cabal's black dog, our military commander. As such I am qualified to offer a formal alliance between your house and our organization. I question the value of such an alliance. Please bear in mind that the White Cabal represents a growing order of more than 3,000 practitioners and with a trained combat corps of over 200 men, half of those being war mages and led by me. Oof. When he puts it like that. It will not take long, I promise. I merely need you to assist me with our new generation's final exam. You will not be in any danger whatsoever and your security will be guaranteed by oath, mine and that of the mages under my command. I am intrigued. I also need to wrap this up before Sorrel upchucks on my tea table. I will see if my current obligations can be postponed. When you say assist with examinations, what do you have in mind? I need you to scare them out of their mind. Oh, this is totally within my field of expertise. Very well, I will need direction. We wrap up our talk and soon I leave an exhausted communication mage on my couch. There are people I need to see. I believe it is a good idea, but you need your own guards, Torin comments from his desk. I sit on one of the reception room's couches and grab a pillow to have something between my hands. I don't have men here. Do you think Constantine would rent me his mercenaries? For a price, of course. Salim would be a better bet though, his security forces are not just good, they carry colors that no one, especially a public group like the Cabal, would want to offend. Great idea, I will see how much he asks for a 20-men complement. That would be acceptable. I wait in silence for Torin to finish his document. When he is done, I gather my courage to talk. I like what we have, I start. Sensing the mood, Torin turns and gives me his undivided attention. I like it when he stops everything to listen to me. I feel like the most important person in the world. But, he replies. But nothing. I like what we have, full stop. I like you. I don't want it to stop and yet it will, because I want to rule here and you will have to return to your own domain sooner or later. Torin holds his hands on his lap and considers for a moment. When he finally decides to talk, his voice is soft, softer than usual. I am your first. Yes. You still think of relationships in mortal terms. For them, there is always a next step. Marry, found a house, create a family, raise the children, grow old together. We are denied this. We are denied an end. I never considered it like that. When the partners are equal in our relationships, allowances must be made, he continues, we are designed to be territorial and individualistic and those of us who survive to masterhood elevate those traits to an art. It is natural that at some point, our paths will diverge. What then? I ask, do we just say goodbye and move on? That seems too pragmatic, he answers, as his lips curve upward ever so slightly. Let me offer another perspective. We are lucky to have no end in sight. Perhaps in 100 years we will still live and taste all those novelties you are so fond of. Who knows what wonders we will see, free of the ravages of time. The only thing that would prevent us from being together again is you, for I will brave oceans and armies for your favor, my Calliopean beauty. I consider this for a moment and realize that he is right and that I am too concerned about the ifs to enjoy the now. I also realize that I have no idea what Calliopean means. This is all too depressing, and I no longer wish to consider this issue. Instead, I notice that you are not naked. Indeed. Torin replies with a sly look that shows where this is going. Why not? I ask. Torin and I leave Boston at the same time. He, to build a weapon and I, to build an alliance. It takes very little effort to convince Sepher to let me go since, as she said, it will take a few weeks to lay the groundwork of her conquest. She just sends me on my way with a smile and instructions to, have some fun, darling. I hire an escort from the Rosenthal, seething at the cost. I then remind myself that this is an investment and that they come with their own gear, supplies and training. They are also absolutely loyal, which in itself is priceless. The trip to New York only takes 2 days, moving at great speed. As we travel, the weather takes a turn for the worse and soon the wheels of my carriage are covered in mud. The morose climate even manages to pierce through my guard's professionalism, and I hear a few heartfelt complaints. The only distraction occurs when I catch the scent of an interesting quarry, a werewolf on the loose. This one has turned feral, and when I do find it, I can have a nice meal. Struck by inspiration, I bring back the corpse and have the slightly alarmed guards tie it up and place it on one of their wagons. Thankfully that werewolf had not fed yet, so the body doesn't stink and should not turn bad before I have put it to use. No, there are no others. Yes, I'm sure, I tell the sergeant, a bald man with an impressive mustache by the name of Bannings. Finally, we arrive at the meeting point, an inn on the outskirts of the city proper. I expected it to be a den of misfits where I would conduct a shady transaction while hidden under a cloak, my penetrating gaze the only thing visible past the helm of my hood. But alas, it appears that the fiction I brought with me to pass the time set the wrong expectations. The traveler's rest is clean and well lit. As soon as we get in, an old gentleman with the face of an experienced accountant stands up in a hurry and comes to greet me. His mage aura is obvious. "Lady Ariane, it is you, isn't it? Mr. Hopkins described you perfectly." "How did he describe me exactly?" I ask with a neutral expression. To my delight, the man immediately squirms and I enjoy a hint of schadenfreude at his unease. He said that you would look like a young girl but come in like a war mage channeling a fireball. Ah! He got me there. To be fair, the man replies, correctly guessing at my state of mind, you were the only blonde-haired blue-eyed young woman to come in so late in the day. I am being comforted by a mage I just met and who is probably younger than me. Ah, well. This is not the bad part. Indeed, the real problem here is how easily Mr. Jonathan Hopkins read me. Am I becoming too predictable? Am I getting old? No, it is fine. I just let my guard down because I was not trying to blend in. Yes. That is the real reason. I follow the mage outside in silence. He misses a step when he takes in the veritable convoy I am leading as well as their very distinctive white uniforms. Nevertheless, he is quick to recover, and we follow him through small country roads to the edge of the lands of the White Cabal. We pass by farmlands and animal pens between two stretches of forest. The farms here are not the sorry functional structures I am used to but comfortable homes in the German style, with wood beams visible on the walls and a sharply inclined roof. The land here is tamed and controlled, under the dominion of the same owners for over a century. At the bend of a road I spot our destination, a long wooden palisade surrounding a tall gate. I can taste mighty enchantments from here. Once more, those are not temporary defenses, but static works embedded into the very earth. It would take more than my claws to tear those open. They are on the scale of what Loth would manage with resources and a bit of time. The mage, whose name is Potts, turns his horse around and trots back to my carriage. "We have arrived, milady, allow me to be the first to welcome you to Avalon." Pretentious name. I'll get us through the gate. Mr. Hopkins requests that you do not show yourself as he would like to keep your presence a secret. We will go directly to his estate and he will explain everything. Would that be acceptable? He asks with just a bit of worry. I assent, and close the carriage's curtains. The gate guards wave us in promptly, an indication that we are expected. Avalon itself is an intriguing mix between a town and a military installation. We pass by solid stone barracks, as well as offices and further in, warehouses. There are also inns and restaurants, more often made from wood. Some perpendicular streets are filled with shops ranging from a smithy to bookstores. At this late hour, the people are mostly gathered around a pair of taverns, though the streets themselves are not empty. Patrols walk the deserted squares and empty alleys. I estimate that at the very least 2,000 souls live here full-time. We do not stop and soon reach the outskirts. We ride past a firing range and kennels to more open lands. Spaced cottages fill the place now, each separated by thick lines of trees. We are still inside of the wooden wall which I can sometimes spot in the distance. In short order, we arrive at an unremarkable house where a familiar figure awaits us. I climb down and greet the worried woman. I remember her from the battle. She was the healer who stood up to me and cried a lot, easily recognizable by her white hair and red eyes. Her name was Sola if I recall correctly. Now that her visage isn't covered in snot, I can appreciate that she is beautiful in a fragile sort of way. Good evening. Oh, you are a bit early. John is still at a strategic meeting, so we'll have to wait a bit. He won't be long. I follow her to the door of the cottage and stop at the threshold. Sola returns when she realizes I am not following and looks on with confusion before realizing the issue. I am so sorry. Please come in. I wordlessly follow her in a cozy, if cramped, entrance. An old maid with a disapproving frown glares silently. Hilda, please escort Lady Ariane to the study, would you? Sola asks politely. The maid takes in my countenance and the girl's fearful tone. Her behavior shifts from suspicious to respectful in a heartbeat, and I follow her up narrow stairs to a small room on the second floor. There, the homey aspect of the rest of the house is discarded in favor of an almost militaristic installation. Bookshelves filled with well-ordered reports and manuals line the wall, with a single desk set against a large window. Its surface is spotless with the exception of a pile of documents set in a case labeled "To Do." The only concession to comfort is a set of 3 chairs centered around a coffee table, currently empty. The young mistress will be with you shortly, milady. Would you like something to drink in the meanwhile? No thank you, I reply. The maid departs and I am left alone, so I decide to peruse Jonathan's collection. Most of the books are treatises of various topics ranging from military to ethics, administration, and economy. On a corner, I find a stocky dictionary and decide to check what "Callippian" means. I quickly find the right definition. Callippian, having well-shaped buttocks. Well played, Torin, well played indeed. Soon, Sola knocks and enters the room, searching for me with fearful eyes. Her aura spreads from lack of control, further betraying her nervousness. The scent of wood and old books is washed away by a more neutral one. Now, it just smells clean and crisp. She had already demonstrated that ability back in the cellar where I met her. Most peculiar power. I could certainly use someone with her ability in Marquette. Ah, to have a room that smells clean. The dream. Oh, you are here, she mumbles with a small voice. Ah, where are my manners? Would you like some tea? Her face scrounges with the perfect expression of someone who just realized she placed her foot in her mouth. I simply cannot let this opportunity pass. No thank you, I prefer my drinks with a little more body, I reply, then show her a smile with a hint of fangs. She swallows nervously. Her fluttering heartbeat and the perfume of fear make her truly appetizing. That was a nice one. I shall have to tell Nami when we meet again. All right. John should be on his way back now. I'll send him up. Bye. And then she runs away. John, I cannot help but notice that it looks like she lives there, and I saw a ring on her finger. He is a fast one. It takes less than 10 minutes for the man himself to stop in front of the door. I hear the imperceptible noise of a mechanism and turn to see that a previously hidden spying eye allows him to see in. I wave, and he enters. Forgive me. One can never be too cautious. To be fair, he is the right amount of cautious. I am the one taking inane risks coming here. I do not mind. So, you wanted to talk. Right, talking. Talking. The curious man moves to the table and joins me in one of the chairs. He places a mug on the table from whence emerges wafts of tea. He takes a sip before continuing. I have done more talking in the past 3 months than in the past 5 years combined. The cost of responsibility. Indeed. I have to explain not just the thing but the why of the thing and the how of the thing, and I need to acknowledge and thank and compliment and argue. Why can't everyone think with their head and focus on the goal? Why all the pointless bullshit? Ah, that type. Jonathan sees politics and social niceties as a waste of time, a specificity of people whose intelligence far outstrips their social graces. Politics is an inevitability. He will get used to it, eventually. See it as yet another tool in his arsenal. Apologies. You did not come here to hear me complain. Let's talk about the plan. Before that, I have questions, I interrupt. He gestures for me to go on while sipping from his mug. You were promoted very recently, yes? Correct. And this is a city, probably with some sort of council that can remove you from your post at any given moment. Are you not taking a risk, asking me here? On the contrary. I will be honest, I believe your presence will solidify my position and bring me, and us, multiple benefits. Does it now? I see, and you need me to calm them down. More specifically, I need you to terrify the ever-loving shit out of them. Language, I protest. I mean it, he continues, they need to face you to understand that they remain humans in a world of old monsters. I mull this over. The way I see it, I am training mages to face vampires. I share my sentiment with Jonathan, who only scoffs. Please, no amount of training can make us match your speed. Besides, I am serious about that alliance. Allow me to continue. The second benefit is political. Half of the council opposed my ascension to the title of Black Dog after Coolidge resigned, even though he designated me as a successor. They question your former affiliation. Not even that, I am just an outsider to them. The old guard is loath to share their power with newcomers. Fortunately, the selection of a new dog is mostly made by fighters since the Cabal's creation. Your support will greatly increase my prestige and demonstrate my abilities as a diplomat, a skill that I have not demonstrated yet. My opponents have criticized me for that. At length. Which brings me back to my previous question. Won't they see me as a monster? It is, after all, what I am. You underestimate the mystique around your kind. You are less seen as something to be fought and more as an inevitability. You, especially, led us through a blockade that would have been the death of us all. My men witnessed your savagery and spread tales of your actions upon their return. Trust me, your presence here will give me a cachet that will solidify my position beyond the council's ability to damage. What about my well-being? There are probably more than 1,000 mages here, and I have 20 guards. A well-coordinated assault could cause my death. In conflicts, mages don't count. War mages do, and they are all under my command. With that said, I took the liberty of having a secret shelter dug 100 yards from here, its entrance camouflaged by powerful enchantments. You can slumber there. I do not like this, but I will agree if that alliance of yours proves interesting enough. Ah, yes, thank you for the reminder. This is not the third advantage your presence brings me. That one I would rather tell you after the test, since I am not sure it will turn out to be correct. There was something else I wanted to address. Jonathan places his cup on the table and leans forward. Our eyes meet, and I notice that he wears a pendant that protects him against my charm. Like most of those, I could bypass it with time and effort. I will not, because we are negotiating as equals. Do you know what New York's most important feature is? He continues. I gesture for him to go on. New York is the entry point for most European immigration right now. The reason why the White Cabal has grown so much recently is that we have heavily recruited from the newcomers. This has upset the balance of power within our organization, but it also represents a unique opportunity for us to turn into something new. A national-level mage group. Precisely, Jonathan continues, the largest alliance in the world. Power-wise we are far from it, but number-wise we are getting close. I have studied the power structure of spellcasters extensively in the past few months. In Europe, the battle mages are mighty and dangerous. They wield spells refined over centuries yet also jealously guarded. The clans, cabals, whatever they call themselves heavily compete for resources and knowledge. This secretive and adversarial state of mind made the winners strong, but it also contributed to a fragmented landscape with small entities constantly bickering with each other. We aim to change that here. Sola and I, as well as senior members of the council, are forcing the creation of a vast depository of knowledge that any member of the cabal could access if they have proved themselves dependable. This is the first step towards normalized, large-scale training. And the creation of a modern society of mages. The vampires may object to the creation of such a powerful organization. You would not be the only ones. Spellcasters with a darker agenda, the Gabrielites and God knows who else will oppose us. That is why I am pushing for an alliance with you. Jonathan, I eat people. You are honorable and can be counted on. We are not here to save the world, we are here to save ourselves. Some members of your organization must want to purge the world of our presence. Yes, and half of their fighting men died in Louisiana last month. We are at a crossroad, and with your help, I will steer the cabal towards cooperation. The first step of our alliance will be to send a contingent of our more frontier-minded people to Marquette, where they will settle and create a branch of the cabal. That way, we can start transferring population outside of the compound before it gets saturated and we occupy the place. You are worried that other groups may take over. Not take over Marquette obviously, but yes, we need branches around to prevent others from moving in. Nature, after all, abhors a vacuum. Very well, but I have terms. Jonathan picks up his mug and leans back, indicating that I should start. You get a territory where you may do whatever you want. You may not expand out of it before consulting with me and you may not enter the area around my nest without permission. You will support my men and me in any operations against my enemies, including other mages seeking my destruction. You will not prevent me from hunting. In return, I will also defend you and leave you to do your own thing on your end. That sounds reasonable, Jonathan replies, we'll write it all down and take an oath. I still need to convince the council and I propose that we try tomorrow after the exam. Would that be agreeable? Yes. Now, let's talk about the exam. I have prepared a few things. Jonathan listens to my plan and for the first time since we met, his grin is wide and genuine.